Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and today's weekend best of special. My goodness, it was a busy week. I was with the All In podcast guys on Monday in LA and then Tucker Carlson in Kansas City, Missouri on Thursday. And then on Tuesday night, we were all together, you and I, after that ABC presidential debate. Did you watch? Hello. If you missed it, you can see our instant reaction live from this set, as well as analysis from Emily Jashinsky and Rich Lowry. It went totally viral. My goodness, that thing was everywhere. You'll see why in the clip that we selected for today. Plus, Buck Sexton was with me to break down one key moment from the debate that showed how the ABC moderators let this thing go completely off the rails. Plus, our friends from the Fifth Column, they're always fun. They joined me to talk about the Taylor Swift endorsement. Man, she's annoying. As well as reaction that we are seeing from focus groups to this debate. Didn't actually go so swimmingly as the mainstream would have you believe. At least that's not what the instant reaction was. They were pretty skeptical, actually, as it turns out, of Kamala Harris's performance. And Adam Carolla joined us when we were out in LA to talk about the feminization of men in America and so much more. Enjoy. And talk to you Monday. Well, I watched it. Did you watch it? I'm disgusted. I'm ashamed of those moderators at ABC News. They did exactly what their bosses wanted them to do. The person who runs ABC News is a close personal friend of Kamala Harris that is responsible for Kamala Harris and her husband meeting. And they did Dana Walden's bidding tonight. It was 3 against 1 on that debate stage this evening. Hi, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly, a special program tonight for you reacting to the debate. It was 3 against 1. It's very easy to look like you know what you're doing when both moderators are entirely on your side. Trump did the best he could under the circumstances, but it really was like 3 fighters in the ring pummeling one opponent. And Trump tried to take them all on. He did fine. He did as best as he could. He was thrown a few times to the point where he was unnecessarily defensive and he was getting angry. And so was I. Were you? This was a mistake to trust ABC News with this debate. The Republicans must learn from this mistake. The same way the Democrats never agree to do anything with moderators they don't entirely trust. This should be the last time the Republicans ever do this. Because those 2 moderators tried to sink Donald Trump tonight. The numerous fact checks on what he said and none on what she said. None. I don't remember a single fact check of anything she said, and she lied repeatedly. She just got away with it. In the moderator's eyes, that was Donald Trump's job to fact check her. That's correct. Except you didn't employ that same tactic when it came to Trump, and you accused him of lying even when it was your opinion that he lied. When Trump tried to say that his comment that he lost 2020 by a whisker was him being sarcastic, David Muir actually injected saying, I didn't hear sarcasm. Who gives a shit what you heard? Who died and left you political analyst in chief? You're supposed to be the objective news anchor of World News Tonight. That's a comment you make to your significant other, David, not on the debates. It didn't sound like that to me. Shut up. That is inappropriate. It's not for you to make that call. Leave it up to Kamala Harris. Leave it up to people like me who will play the soundbite and let the audience decide. But you were out of line, and they did it to him over and over and over again. And the worst piece of all of this is the obvious tactic by ABC News, which was as follows. Mr. Trump, you said something incredibly controversial and terrible. Let me remind you of what it was. Do you have any regrets or thoughts on how terrible you were? Trump answers. Vice President Harris, how bad is Trump? And then she'd answer. It happened over and over again. That was the format. Mr. Trump, you're a piece of shit. Kamala Harris, isn't he a shit? Thank you. It was incredible. And then anything Trump said, fact check, fact check, fact check. And their fact checks were full of shit. I'm swearing even more than normal right now because I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm angry at them, at ABC, at my industry that I want nothing to do with. And I've never been happier to be outside and be able to say how I truly feel. And yes, even with some colorful words, because that's what the situation calls for. They're trying to steal this election. They're openly working to sink him. I think it was so bad, their bias against him and toward her, that it's going to backfire. I actually think the American public is going to see through this, and there's probably going to be some empathy for Trump. No fair-minded person could think anything other than that they were in the tank for him, and it was 3-1 on that stage tonight. Joining me to discuss it, Emily Jashinsky, D.C. correspondent for Unheard, and Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief of National Review. I've never seen anything like it, Rich. I've never seen anything quite so biased at the presidential debate level.
Well, it continues a theme of this race, right? They've been completely in the tank for Kamala Harris, and the moderators on the debate stage were completely in the tank for Kamala Harris. And you knew where the night was going when we got the first fact check when Trump was talking about abortion and was talking about, he misspoke in this instance. He got it right later when he said the West Virginia governor, the former Virginia governor had talked about you can have abortions after birth, right? And he didn't say in any state has abortions after birth. He just said the governor had said this, which is a correct statement. And then he's fact checked by saying, well, Mr. Trump, there's no state in America that has abortion after 9 months. Actually, there are a few instances in Minnesota. He was correct about that as well. But this is the point. The fact check was incorrect, right? And this is why debate moderators shouldn't fact check. You know, the CNN moderators did not fact check because what you think the fact is in that moment may be subjective, you may be wrong, and you're tilting the playing field. And certainly to fact check one candidate and never fact check the other. She did the Charlottesville lie, the both sides are fine people lie, no fact check. She did the bloodbath lie. He clearly didn't mean that, you know, the country is going to be, there are going to be riots in the street if he's not elected. It was an economic statement, no fact check. So the moderators were a disgrace. It's one of the reasons Trump seemed on defensive a lot of the night. One was he took a lot of bait from Kamala Harris that he didn't need to. The other was the horrendous moderation.
Agree. He took bait he shouldn't have taken. He was defending himself on the pandemic. He was on his heels instead of going on offense and pivoting off of the bad point for him onto something that was more offensive. That was a tactical error by him. But I do want to just spend a minute on this fact check you just mentioned. Here it is. Here's the moment we're referring to where Lindsey Davis helpfully fact checked Trump on this abortion claim.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay, that's not true. And maybe she can use the word kill. It's not like somebody's sticking a knife in the dead baby, in the live baby as it's dying, Emily. But you and I both know that in places like Minnesota and elsewhere, if you are trying to abort a baby in the 9th month or otherwise, and it's born instead of dying in the mother's womb, they will let that baby sit on the table and die. And Trump's claim, though Rich is right, he said at first West Virginia, later he corrected himself to Virginia. Their former governor, Ralph Northam, said this on camera, admitted to this. Here is the soundbite.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So
I'll give you one other. Roger Severino, he's with the Heritage Foundation, tweeting out the following. Harris, and as it turns out, Lindsey Davis, is dead wrong. Some babies do survive abortions and can be saved, but are denied life-saving treatment, including under Tim Walz's watch. Harris even voted against the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act to defend, that would have defended the lives of these babies, their right to live once born. Unconscionable. Trump didn't say any of that, okay? He tried. But the nerve of this moderator to inject herself into it without any of this.
Here's
for you,
what
Emily.
here's what I find especially infuriating about that. She editorialized with all of the sanctimony in the world to say that word, to focus in on that word, quote, execute. I don't know if she knows any of the context that you just provided, which is all completely accurate and known to people who follow the news closely, unless you're in a total bubble and aren't doing your job, which is obviously the case here. But she chose to editorialize and say, it's not true. You can't execute. You can't kill babies. I mean, actually, it depends on whether or not you consider having a baby who could be cared for, born alive, and then left without care. If you don't consider that an execution, okay. But she is injecting here to quibble editorially, and she doesn't have a leg to stand on this particular issue. There are obvious moments where Kamala Harris could have been fact-checked just as any candidate could. I don't object to them fact-checking Donald Trump. I object to them fact-checking, as Rich said, period. We didn't, after that CNN debate about Biden, talk about the moderators for a lot of reasons, namely because of Biden, but we also really saw them sink into the background of that debate. It was the opposite in this case. They were constantly injecting themselves, constant fact checks. Didn't get a fact check on IVF, Project 2025, as Abigail Schreier pointed out. Nothing on Charlottesville, even when Snopes had fact-checked what Joe Biden was saying about Charlottesville that Kamala Harris repeated. Nothing on abortion, nothing on that bloodbath comment. They just let it all go and just went straight for Trump. It was all him, none her, nothing, not one fact check on Kamala Harris.
But Emily, what you point out gets to the insanity of it. If she was going to be strictly accurate in her fact check, she would have said, well, it's not technically an execution because you're not affirmatively killing the child. Instead, after the child's born, you're just giving the child comfort care and not the medical care that might be necessary to save him or her. That's an opinion, right? That's a debate answer. And so, but instead they do it under the guise of a fact check, which gives it this authority it doesn't deserve that they're using that by the grace of them sitting there as moderators. It's a total abuse of their role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same thing on Trump's attempt to claim that when he said on a podcast that he lost the 2020 election by a whisker, I said this on my show today, you guys. I said, if I were asking the questions tonight, I would ask him about that. And about the fact that he said on a podcast last week he lost by a whisker. And you should bring that up. And that's fine to bring that up, which they did. And I was actually surprised by Trump's answer. I was being sarcastic. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that he was being sarcastic in that answer either. I didn't detect the sarcasm myself. That's not appropriate as a fact check, David Muir. I wanted to do this since the debate because I share your frustration about Trump on immigration in particular. And there's just so many opportunities for him to shove it down her throat. And he tried to bring it up, but just didn't do the most effective job of it. But I have this little bit I'm going to show you with these sound bites. It's a run. It's just this one Q&A. It went for 2 minutes, but I sliced and diced it so you can see, we can forensically go through just how effed up the whole thing was. This clip, I'm going to show these clips, just show you how bad David Muir was, how frustrating Kamala Harris was, and how frustrating Trump was, which is why we're all feeling so frustrated about this debate, those of us who do not want to see this woman ascend to power in the presidency. So let's go to the issue of when they did ask Kamala Harris about what took you so long to try to do anything about the border, right? 6 months before the election, Joe Biden puts a Band-Aid in place to try to look like, oh, we've got control of the border. We all knew why he was doing that. He doesn't care about the border for all the reasons you just espoused. So here's the question to Harris.
My question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
Okay, good question. Why did it take so long? And would you have done anything differently? Here we go. Fair question. Let's hear what she has to say.
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing.
Nothing to do with immigration.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
So she pivots off of one of the most important issues in the country today. Why didn't you do anything about this? And would you have done anything differently than your boss to his rallies? And we all knew what was going to happen, because she was like, something shiny over here. And Trump, that is his trigger spot, his rallies, his crowd sizes, ran like Strudwick after the liver snaps when I throw them on the side lawn, ran for it with gusto. Here he is.
People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost.
Okay, so then you're like, oh, please pivot back to the issue. Please, Trump, bring it back to immigration. Like, shove all those facts that you just said down her throat. He could have brought up Laken Riley. He could have brought up the families he's been spending time with at the border, whose daughters have been killed at age 12 by these illegals crossing into America. He went a different way, which it was an issue, and it's fine to talk about. It was not the best issue. Here's where he went.
And look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Now David Muir comes in to save the day more. Oh, here I am, objective fact checker. I'm going to hammer Orange Man. Watch.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking
television
it from the city
saying
manager.
Their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris.
Now the moderator is arguing with Trump over a city manager in Springfield, Ohio versus what Trump has seen on television. By the way, that's why you should not fact check a thing that is in dispute and has not been settled, David Muir. But things are spinning off the rails. How far away are we right now from the Joe Biden immigration policies and whether she would have done anything differently? So now he turns to Harris. This is your opportunity, David Muir, to get this thing back on track and look at her and say, the question, madam, was, would you have done anything differently than Joe Biden did? He does turn to Kamala Harris, and this is what happens.
So I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
What? That's not the fucking toss.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney.
The toss to her is not, would you have anything to say? I'll just follow up. Would you like to respond? It's, you didn't answer the question. You talked about rallies. And of course, what does she say? Nothing about immigration. All these Republicans love me. He's unhinged. This is why we felt sick when this thing was over.
Well, this also shows you, and I like that you broke it up in that way. It's very clear that Kamala Harris memorized different little speeches and responses, and her whole game plan was get to speech A, get to speech B. It had nothing to do, and avoid, of course, actual policy discussion, which is what happened there. That was, I'll be honest with you, Megyn, like I'm having a little flashback trauma to watching that. Just because
Me too.
That was, if these are two boxers in a ring, that was Kamala Harris unsteady on her legs, ready for the knockout blow, and Trump going off into the corner and doing a little dance and waving, to people in the crowd. That for me, and it just makes me so mad because she knew exactly what she was doing, and it worked. Okay, you and I, it worked. Mm-hmm. She was able to evade
like a charm.
Worked like a charm, and Trump went right for it. But the other side of it, and I know that there's a lot of people who they think everything Trump does is great. I'm not one of those people. I do like Trump a lot and support his presidency with all that I can. He's a great presenter and entertainer. He's not a skilled debater. Those are different skill sets. You and I know, there are people say, oh, so-and-so is so good on current events. I'm like, they read off a piece of glass. They don't know anything, right? I mean, they're even within media, people can have different areas of competency or lack thereof. Same thing in politics. But I do think that because of I don't know if persecution narrative is the right way to put it, but because of the sense that everything is always stacked against Trump by the establishment, this very much plays into that. Trump has never had a great debate performance, has never had a great debate performance.
I don't know.
And
I
yet
don't
has
agree with
still
that.
won.
I don't agree.
Which one? I mean,
he sliced and diced those Republicans in 2016.
Oh, I'm thinking about general election debates, but yeah, I mean, he's very good and funny when he has. What was amazing about Trump in the general election, in the primary against Republicans, was how much he was able to command the stage, right? You've got 8 other people there or whatever it was. And it was like Trump and really nobody else was there. And that's like a superpower, right? I mean, really, most of the time you have all these politicians excuse me, they look like the kid in the class who really wants to get in and answer all the questions. And it's just not Trump just stands there and with limited time was always the center of attention no matter where he was. And he was actually center stage because he was first in the polls. In general elections, I mean, I'd have to think back. I don't think he did a great job against Hillary Clinton in the debate. I think he had an amazing campaign and obviously won that. I can't say that he did a great job against Joe Biden to memory. I'd have to go back and look at it the first time around. He obviously had a knockout blow against Biden this time around, but wasn't that really just Joe Biden?
Him.
I mean,
it was Joe Biden.
He was good.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump didn't step on it, but this time around, I was expecting something better. But I also think the debates.
I agree with you. Look,
really
I think people understand how unfair this was. I do think people understand how unfair this was, and I don't think this debate is going to move the polls. And we'll get to people who disagree with me. We've got some of that sound queued up, but this Trump has been spending time with grieving families whose kids were killed by illegals. He knows these facts. It's just he's driven by whatever he's seen on TV most recently. But we have been covering, look at this soundbite. He went down to the border and he met with moms who talked about the murder of their daughters. Watch this.
My daughter was just 12. She had dreams to be famous. She wanted to be a famous actor. June 17th was the day her life was taken. She was left with no clothing from the waist down, was thrown in a bayou, left was strangled to death. We believe, yes, she was assaulted. They had no reason to do anything that they did to Jocelyn. There was over 300 detention beds that they should have been at because they were detained and they were released when they shouldn't have been released. One had an ankle monitor, didn't stop anything. So now I have to go through the rest of my life with my son, always asking for his sister. Please take into consideration how important border control is because we're losing very innocent people to heinous crime. Please help him make a change.
This poor woman, her name is Alexis Nungare. Her daughter was Jocelyn. There was another mom down there, Patty Morin, talking about her daughter's murder. And both of the suspects had illegally entered the United States this year. They were released into the country. One had claimed he feared for safety if he'd been sent back to Venezuela. The other was fitted with an ankle monitor, but removed it after it was determined he had no known criminal history. Doug Brunt, my husband, he doesn't react to that much in the news. And so when it gets his attention, I know that something's gone either very right or very wrong. And he did not like this clip from Tim Walz reacting to the Taylor Swift news. Watch.
Taylor Swift signed childless cat lady. I have to get your response to that, Mr. Governor.
All those things, I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up.
Courage.
Okay, so for the listening audience, when he first reacted, his mouth was like this.
Yeah.
And my husband said he looks like Elmer Fudd. That's what he looks like, Elmer Fudd. Like there's something off about this guy. And just one more for you. Different but similar reaction from Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC.
The Harris for President campaign now has the two most perfectly timed and most important endorsements of this campaign. Joe Biden's 27-minute timed endorsement after he said, I'm not the candidate. Perfect timing. It just put a rocket on her to the nomination. And it's so important, I think, to the people who are going to be consuming that Taylor Swift endorsement, including those fathers of 8-year-old girls. And the timing on it is absolutely exquisite. The wording of it is flawless and perfect, right down to the cat lady stuff.
There you go. The fathers. That's you guys. The fathers of the young girls are going to be pushed. I know. I mean, I don't really get it, but perfect.
On Instagram by now?
First of all, I don't. Two very important comments that everyone should pay attention to. I really cannot stand on cable news when people pretend that something's funny because someone important is on. He said, I got my cat owner too. And everyone's like, oh my God, that was amazing, Tim Walz.
That is so
Richard
true.
Pryor of Minnesota. That's the first very important thing. It makes me sick. The second thing is I don't like the Joe Biden. That was the rocket. First, I was at the DNC. I don't remember that rocket taking off. And then the fathers of 8-year-old girls. My daughter is 13, and as you could imagine, she's perfect and hilarious and everything. That said, I don't look to the people that she listens to on her Spotify account and say, who are they going to vote for? That's what I really want to know. Because, you know, sometimes it's Freddie Mercury and he doesn't have a choice right now.
I have an 11-year-old son. That's my youngest. And all the people he listens to sing about poop and farts. That's really his.
Who are these artists?
Is that?
There's a lot of songs on there. You're into, that's fine. But there's a lot of songs. These are not our political, opinion makers. Go ahead, Matt.
DJ Scatto.
Yeah, I might want to have a talk with him, by the way, but that's just, I'm not going to.
There have been many.
My daughter is a 16-year-old Swiftie. My other daughter is becoming a Swiftie. She's 9. And she's not going to be moved even a millimeter by this. She's moved by, as all 16-year-old girls are, by hilarious TikTok videos having to do with like skibbity rizzlers and things like that. And Melania Trump. Melania Trump is an absolute hero to 16-year-old girls. I think she's fantastic.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, to his 16-year-old.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
But I could see it. Sure.
She's my hero.
I mean, she's a hero to me, too.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
People hate Donald Trump so much that they've forgotten that she's our hottest first lady by a lot. Like, by a lot. It's not even close. In like Abigail Adams, nothing. Please.
I'm on the record.
Abigail Adams. I don't believe you because Vogue put Jill Biden on the cover as our fashion icon we're supposed to be looking up to. Jill Biden. Remember Jill Biden? Remember Joe Biden? Yeah, he's still president. Just FYI, I don't know if you're aware. Here is another attempted. Well, it's Trump who's doing the fact check, but I can't believe David Muir had the nerve to say this about the crime stats. Watch this. SOT 9.
Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
That is totally correct. What Trump said in response, he was having to fact check the moderator, gents. Fact check the moderator. Not only is he right, they did remove the major cities, several of them, from that crime study that was referenced. But on top of that, the decrease in violent crimes is looking at all post-George Floyd. If you want to compare present year to 2019, pre-George Floyd, we are not down. We are up considerably. And Heather McDonald has been pointing this out and pointing out, if you want to go back even further and look at the Ferguson effect after 2014 and compare where we were prior to Ferguson versus now, again, we've skyrocketed, none of which would be offered by David Muir. But what do you make of the fact that Trump had to fact check not only Kamala, but the moderators?
It didn't help that, as Trump always does, he then extends and his own kind of apocalyptic hyperbole, right? So he's in the same way that like Dana Bash gives Kamala Harris 4 different things ways to answer a question to make it soft on her. He gives moderators, especially ones who are keyed up through what I think is peer pressure, really, from their colleagues industrially, to be sort of tough on Trump so he doesn't abuse his platform. When he says, our country is being destroyed, Israel is going to cease to exist in 2 years, yeah. Which he said that Kamala is a communist, his dad's a communist, Joe Biden hates her. A lot of these are like
he
jokes.
Doesn't know he's alive.
Doesn't know that was funny. So like he is giving, in addition to that fact check there, and I take your word for it, Megyn, of his depiction of it, but he's also saying these other things, and so it I think dulls the impact. Right? Donald Trump is never going to come across as the person who's going to be the biggest truth teller on any stage. And especially towards the end when he knew, I think, that he was kind of scrambling for keeping his head above water in this debate, he sped up and he kept getting more and more hyperbolic in his statements in a way that it just becomes hard to take him seriously. And I think even in those things that he was saying about Kamala Harris, she was skillful in not taking the bait herself. She could have said, no, my dad's not a communist. She's like left
she left that there. She left a bunch of stuff there, which was very wise.
She's not capable.
And again,
it was smart, but she's not capable of doing it. She was like, that is not part of my rote memorization. What card is that on? I do not have it.
There were 2 grades that we were talking about last night. The one on substance and on style, and I think she did well on style. She backed up and she didn't fall on her face like we thought she was going to do. But if you look at the David Muir question, there's actually the first 4 or 5 words are the key to it. I mean, people kind of forget this. He said, Mr. President, as you know, which is a blatant accusation of lying. I mean, the thing is that there's a number of ways, and again, like Matt, I haven't looked at this stuff and looked at it recently. I'm trusting your take on it, Megyn. But there's a number of ways of looking at these statistics, right? Going back to 1993 in New York when there were over 2,000 murders. Like, oh, it's down. It's like, yes, but down. Where's your starting point? So you can be generous in some sense and say, you're interpreting this a different way. But if you look at it this way, Mr. President, but you're just going out of the block and saying, as you know, Mr. President, that is incorrect. I don't think you should do that as a moderator. I'm sorry. But
let me give you some stats. Let me give you some stats because we had Heather McDonald on the show who you can trust implicitly. I mean, Heather does her homework on all things revolving around crime. This is like one of her main beats. And here are some of the stats that we pulled in connection with that interview. According to the Council on Criminal Justice, comparing 2023 to 2019, the homicide rate 18% higher in 2023 versus 19. Gun assault rate 32% higher. Carjacking 93% higher. Car theft 105% higher. Chicago, total crime up 55% in 2023. Robbery up 38%. Car theft up 22%. Memphis, homicides up 87%. And as for those, the one article that the left, Rachel Maddow and David Muir are basing their claims on, that crime has been falling, that it's at a 50-year low and so on and so forth. The guy admits that the major cities were not included in this report. Some major cities like Chicago and Los Angeles did not report any data. So Trump was right. You don't have to believe Trump. You can believe me. You can believe Heather McDonald. You can believe the guy who authored the study on which David Muir is basing that claim. You can believe the Council on Criminal Justice. The point is, it's not the candidate's job to clean up the moderator's inaccurate questions. This is such bullshit. Again, he was in the foxhole. Everyone was surrounding him, firing down at the guy. And Trump was trying to stop the gunfire at every turn. The guy's human. And there's only so much he can do. And that's why I watched this thing and I felt empathy for him. I felt like this is unfair. This is not a fair test of what a president can do and what we should be putting our presidential candidates through in order to get to the office. It's almost cruel. It's trying to humiliate him. That's how I felt watching it.
I keep coming back to the fact that he talked about his expectations of unfairness in the debate. He did not expect them to be fair. He said so in advance. He said so before the CNN debate as well, and that they were fair. And just, if you know that is the case, there's two things they probably should have done, the campaign. Insist that there be another debate on Fox News or something like that, so that you at least have this other opportunity and it's already there. Force Kamala to do it. And the second thing is, again, you know what the defects of your candidate are. You know that he has difficulty just being disciplined and staying on message. That you should laser focus on that. Every question should come, and for every Kamala response, you should go back to the fact that you're in office right now. Why haven't you done it already?
Everyone.
You should have said it like twice. You should have said it every single time and then apologize.
He did get there.
I know you're at home and you're watching, and I've said this 8 times already, but I'll say it again because she is the sitting vice president. They aren't doing the things she promises you that she's going to do that are going to make your life better. What is she waiting for? You can't trust her. That would have worked. But he didn't.
No, he should have said. He never said that you can't trust her. She changes her positions all the time. She makes all these promises, but she doesn't do them while she's in office. His best answer was his closing statement, where he did make these points over and over. Here's a highlight.
Just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it?
Primacy and recency. That's what viewers remember. And here was the CBS focus group of, I believe it was Pennsylvania undecideds, reacting after the debate. And listen to what came up.
She just basically repeated everything that Biden has said in the past.
What were your thoughts? She made, Donald Trump made a strong closing statement by saying, why didn't they do all the things that she's proposing during the 3.5 years that they've been in office? And Biden did this entire moderate stance back in 2020, and she's trying to do it again in 2024, but she didn't talk about her policy changes between 2020 and 2024. Her whole centrist moderate stance is just a facade.
What do you make of that, you guys?
It reminds me a little bit of the post-DNC glow when everybody in the building was just talking about all the joy. Don't you feel joy? You're being joyed on all over your face. And there was tangible joy, or at least a euphoric sense of relief in the audience, because they didn't have to pretend that Joe Biden was fit to be president, or at least like a good candidate. They had some nice speeches from the Obamas and Oprah Winfrey and stuff. So people were in a good mood. They had a really great DJ, legitimately, playing like Sweet Home Alabama. So there was joy in the building, but they tried to incept the joy as if all of America was feeling it. And no, all of America isn't the people who can get through 75 security checkpoints and into the United Center, for a few days. Americans are people who haven't heard from this vice president, right? We know who Trump is. Americans know who Trump is. There's not going to be a lot of new information unless he somehow changes in a certain way. And there's an argument that maybe he's changed a little bit. But they don't really know Kamala Harris as a presidential candidate and aspirant. And as the guy said in the Pennsylvania focus room, we haven't got good explanations at all about how she's changed her mind and how this then impacts what she's going to be like. So that, yes, is the job of a moderator, but it also gives us a sense that maybe there's a cap on, even right now, on a debate that it seems pretty clear that she won. I think most people who watch it will say she won. But the question is, how much of an impact is that going to have on people when you have, on one hand, a lot of those who don't have that natural sense of democratic joy are going to look at the way that this was moderated and presented and feel like this is just continuing the sneering that I'm reacting against. This is the thing that attracts me to begin with, even if we don't like him and think that he colors too much outside the lines or don't like this policy or that. Part of the Trump coalition and the modern day Republican coalition is a revulsion at kind of elite discourse of journalism, of whatever the elites think that they were trying to do. You're going to put more people in that position. Mm-hmm. So the DNC bump, there really wasn't one. And within a week or two, it kind of dissipated. I think that she will get a measurable bump, but I think that there's a ceiling on that precisely because of that response. And also just because it has been a 50-50 race all along. It's not going to become 80-20.
Okay, so this is what's interesting. So she won, but what did she win? Did she actually persuade anybody? Or are there millions of people sitting at home like that guy saying, I did not hear her explain why she flipped on fracking, and I know she flipped on fracking. I did not hear her explain the private health insurance or the guns. She just denied it, but I've seen the sound bites. And here was another person, this is a CNN focus group, who got a similar message, who had a similar takeaway, like, okay, for all the dazzling, like, rhetorical, oh, you didn't do this and you're terrible and everyone hates you. This was his takeaway. I think it's a him. Watch.
I think it's important to remember that we are voting for the leader of our country not who we like the most or who we want in our wedding party, but who is actually going to make our country better. And we're in an incredibly unique situation where we've had both of the candidates in office before, and we've gotten to see what they would do. And when facts come to facts, my life was better when Trump was in office. The economy was higher, inflation was lower, things were better overall. And now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
Were you leaning towards the former president coming into the night?
Probably.
And did you vote for him in 2016 or 2020?
I did.
Interesting.
This is the thing that frustrates me. As you know, I heard some people talking about this last night. Republicans, I think Ben Shapiro was talking about it. I think he's a pretty good weather vane for Republicans in some senses, is that you hear the anger from people. And I know, Megyn, you said you had some sympathy for him. You hear the anger at Donald Trump for not seizing on these opportunities. Those were two articulate answers from two different panels on CNN, and I guess the other one was Fox. But these people who make, good points, and I've heard it before when I'm out in the field talking to people too. And if you're a Republican, you have to say, on the immigration issue, why are you talking about cats? Why are you not talking about the border in a more substantial way? You get to it at some point, right? Well, yeah, you get to it at some point. You get to the end, and people did remember that, but they're there at CNN, tasked with watching the whole debate. Is everybody getting through? I was getting exhausted by minute 85, and then he leaves the good stuff for the end. And I'm thinking of that if I'm in this situation, and the moderators are being this way, you could have so many of those people in those focus groups talking about the good line, not a canned line, but a natural line in the way of like Reagan's, which I think was probably a canned line. There you go again. Going after the moderators, like, look at what these people are doing. This is your media. These are the people that are telling you things about me, right? Do you trust these people? Something like that. But when you talk about the crime stats, all you have to do is beseech the audience to listen to. And say, what's the nearest city to you? Do you feel that city's safe? Do you feel like things are better? Do you feel like your groceries are less expensive than they were under my administration?
Have you gone into a CVS lately? What was your experience?
Correct. Everything's locked up. You can't. I literally. This is actually true. The other night I was in the city. I was trying to get painkillers, and I was like, "Fuck it. I'll screw it. I'll deal with it," because I had to find someone to unlock it. And it's like, no, this is an annoyance in my life that actually kind of matters to me because writ large, it's a big thing. But but Donald Trump has absolutely zero discipline. He's so obsessed with personal grievances. As I said, the people saying, oh, it's genius that he mentioned the crowd size. No, it's not genius. I know
that's
that.
not genius.
You know that.
No.
Everybody knows that.
But if you look back, but I will say, Moynihan, if you look back at, like I did at the transcript, he brings up the economy a lot, to his credit, and he did bring up immigration a lot. He did manage to weave both of those things into his messaging throughout. It was just so much shit being thrown at him, it got lost. Here's another, this is David Chalian over on CNN talking about a focus group on the economy. And watch this.
Who better understands problems facing people like you? Before the debate, 39% said that about Harris, 43% Trump. And look at how that flips for Harris. After the debate, 43% of the debate watchers say that she understands problems facing people like them. 40% say that about Trump. Now, look at the economy here. Who would better handle the economy is what we ask. Going into the debate, before the debate, 37% said Harris, 53% Trump. After the debate, again, margin of error stuff here, but numerically she lost a little ground. 35% said so after the debate, that she would better handle the economy. 55% said Trump.
That's the risk in just dodging and weaving if you're her on these answers. Like, she threw out the same nonsense about how she's going to, I don't know, give up people $25,000 loans and she's going to help small businesses. People don't buy it. They don't trust her to handle the economy. They know Trump can do it. And I think his last message about, were you better off 4 years ago? Why hasn't she done anything in these past 3.5, may have resonated with some people, notwithstanding.
Uncle Joe, the elderly statesman who runs down the middle, was going to just bring us together and we'll get away from the chaos that is Donald Trump. That was the promise 4 years ago. Then the guy went on a tour where he basically worked race into every single speech, agitating every person that wasn't white, saying white supremacy was the bigger, and doing much more divisive agitation than anyone who came before him. And now we're supposed to believe this isn't going to happen again.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that was just the promise.
She's on camera saying, be more woke. That's the answer to everything. More woke.
Biden at least had the dignity to lie when he was running, saying, we're just going to tack back toward the middle. We're going to stop. We're going to cool the temp, stop the vitriol, and we'll bring sort of civility and sanity back to the United States. Now, he didn't do any of that, but who knows what he knows, and he's probably just being told to say something. But Kamala, I would have nothing that would lead me to believe that this would happen again. And by the way, how could it if the rules are like, so here are the rules on the left. We would like to turn your city into a sanctuary city. We would like to protest on behalf of Hamas. We would like 13-year-olds getting their genitalia cutting off. And then if I say something about it, now there's a problem. Yeah. And now there's agitation. Well, excuse me, crazy person. You can't. If I had a roommate and he said, my policy is I always leave the refrigerator door open and I never do my dishes and I don't flush the toilet, I'd go, well, that's not right. And then he'd go, oh, starting trouble, are we?
No unity.
No unity for you. It's like, yeah, you come in here with a bunch of crazy ideas and policy that's destructive and hurtful. And when I raise my hand and go, I'm not down with that, then you go, oh, I thought we had unity.
They're so divisive. I'm going to bring back unity to the country. So enter Ron Howard, who I'm so disappointed in little Opie. So he made the movie J.D. Vance, Hillbilly
Worst
Elegy.
Metallica song ever. Enter Ron Howard.
He made the movie Hillbilly Elegy a couple of years ago based on J.D. Vance's best-selling book. And good for him for making the movie, even though at that point we knew that J.D. Vance, seemed to be more Republican-leaning, but more of a Trump whisperer at that point who could explain the white working class as opposed to, it's fine to be a Republican as long as you're never Trump Republican. Right. And so he makes this movie about him. And just like Glenn Close, who felt the need to take a shot at J.D. Vance rather than just keeping her pie hole shut.
Oh, yeah, she played the mom.
She played the mamaw. The mamaw who changed his life. And so Ron Howard is asked about this new evil J.D. Vance.
Yes.
And whether he regrets making this film. And instead of taking the high road, Adam, like I stand by the storytelling. It was a great American story, and I'm not going to weigh in beyond that. That's for the voters to decide. He goes full low road. Watch.
I have been surprised and concerned by a lot of the rhetoric, coming out of that campaign. Given the experience that I had then 5-6 years ago, I'd say that I've been surprised. Listen to what the candidates are saying today. That's what's really relevant. It's who they are today, and make a decision, an informed one.
But then he added more. He gave an interview to Deadline, and he said, here's the question, by the way, from Deadline. You made an underdog story about a poor young man from a dysfunctional family with a grandmother who would not let him fail. He has evolved from that young man into a polarizing, volatile conservative. Nice objective question, Deadline.
Yeah.
I'm sure people have said to you, Ron, what have you unleashed? How do you process that? Blah, 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 blah. I'm very surprised and disappointed by much of the rhetoric I'm reading and hearing. People do change, and I assume that's the case. So he's surprised, disappointed at the rhetoric, and he's concerned about it and really wants people to listen to what they're saying and then vote accordingly. None of that on the Kamala Harris side, none of that when they called him a Hitler, none of that against the complaints that he's a misogynist, to actually, in this case, give the other side and say, you know what? I know he said some things that are controversial, but the man I came to know was raised by strong women who changed his life, and I have to believe they had a long-lasting effect on this man.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when you think about a guy like Ron Howard, because he'll say things I've heard coming out of their campaign. Things you read on Variety and USA Today and LA Times and New York Times. There are people in my life who I talk to all the time. They legitimately have no idea about what the story, what the true comments, good people on both sides or whatever. They have no inject bleach. Well, he said inject bleach. I read 10 articles that said, why should I hire, why do I want to vote for a guy who said inject bleach, or that, all Muslims were terrorists or something
dictator,
like that. And, he said, he said he was going to be a dictator and bloodbath on the, I think first day's dictator, second day's bloodbath. But either way, why would I? So to be fair to Ron Howard, he may just be reading this stuff in the places he gets his information, which could be the LA Times, in which case he would think that that's what they're doing. They go,
needs to cast a wider net.
J.D. Vance said school shootings were a good thing, and he hopes there's more of them. Right. Oh, man, well, I wouldn't vote for that guy. Not voting for that. He swims in a swimming pool with a shirt on. I'm not voting for him. So Ron is probably in the bubble. The bubble gets their info from within the bubble, and many of them legitimately do not have any idea what is going on outside of that group. And when they get their information from CNN, but it could be ABC or NBC, it doesn't have to be, MSNBC, they get their version of he said school shootings were a nice thing, and then they believe it, and then they form their opinions. Mm-hmm. Now, what is kind of on them is everyone needs to be a little more dubious. You know what I mean? Like when you hear that headline.
At this point, the media is lying to you about Trump. You must know this.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a two-way street. You'll see conservative things come out that says, Tim Walz said the Holocaust was a good thing, and I go, he probably said something about the Holocaust, but I don't think the right media doesn't do it nearly as much. And the left, that's what they do. That's their thing, is twisting stuff. But as a person that consumes information and then has to report it, on the air, you have to kind of put on your hat that has a big question mark on it and kind of go, let me look into this a little more. Like, even if if J.D. Vance thought school shootings were good, why would he say that into a microphone in front of a crowd?
Truly stupid.
What I mean? Like that's something he wouldn't do it even if he thought that. So let me go back and watch the tape. and they don't do it.
The number of flip-flops that she's done, I think the left has heard about these. They just don't care. They like the original positions. They believe her that her values haven't changed. They know she's got to say they've changed in order to win this election. And over the weekend, one of her campaign spokespeople came out and really put a new spin on it. But I think it was a fine spin for the left. They'll go along with this. This is Ian Sams on Thursday, actually, it was on CNN. Take a listen to SOT 25.
She's been part of the Biden administration. I mean, she has been part of the Democrats have been in control of the country for the last 3 going on 4 years. And you are still seeing this in the polling. I mean, these working class voters are telling us right now that more of them are with Donald Trump than Kamala Harris. Why? What is it about what you guys have been doing for the last 3+ years that explains that?
Well, I think, again, we're trying to talk to the voters and explain this message. We've got 60 days until the election. We don't have time to sit around and think about why over the last few years certain things may have happened or may not have happened.
You don't?
Nah.
Probably his wallet looks pretty good. His trips to the grocery store are not stressful. And this is one of her top people saying, we really don't have time to think about why what happened over the past 3.5 years happened. Just vote Kamala Harris.
Yeah, so we're at an inflection point as far as I can tell, which is sort of Subaru good vibes taking over Ford tough, built Ford tough, and Subarus are built with love, right? Mm-hmm. And the people like us go, I'm just a brass taxer. I want to know all the information and all the policy. But there's enough. And I think what it is enough men have sort of slid over to the good vibes made with love department. It's probably circulating estrogens and too much plastic in our food and low testosterone.
Could be a thing.
Oh, yeah. No, guys are turning into women, essentially.
They're losing all their sperm.
They're losing all whatever made them dudes, and so they're not worried about powertrain warranties anymore. They're worried about puppies and love and lesbians and station wagons. So that's where we're heading. And all politicians do is they go, ooh, we're drifting toward love. So Kamala Harris is all, Joe Biden, do you think he knows who Dylan Mulvaney is? You think he cares about the trans community? You think he knows any of this stuff?
I think Dylan Mulvaney sat down with Joe Biden, but that doesn't mean
no,
Biden
he doesn't know who he is. He
No.
didn't know who he was 10 seconds before that. Never
still
cared.
Doesn't know.
Still doesn't know. The point is they licked the finger. Somebody told him we're drifting toward the feminization and the love, and there's more dudes turning into women every day. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean physically, I'm talking about like chemical castration,
exactly.
just turning into females. And why not run on good vibes? So what they're saying, what Kamala's side is saying is, look, we don't need to get into all the nuts and the bolts of the policies and the feds and the reserve and the oil reserves and drilling and fracking, border. What are we doing that? We're good vibes. He's mean. Yells and stands there at looking very Mussolini-esque. So we're just running over that. Now, as far as the technical stuff, the actual policies, just do what they do in the Subaru commercials.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
That's
we're talking
right.
about this.
That's what I think she's going to do tomorrow night. She's going to do like economy, opportunity economy, and we're going to protect seniors.
Right.
And we're going to clean up the environment.
Right.
It's just going to be these sweeping, empty promises. I don't think she's going to drill down on any policies because she's got to stay as close to generic Democrat as she can. Although, I mean, as I discussed with Larry Elder, right now that's not working that well for her because that latest New York Times Siena poll shows her support is not that strong. She's not as strong with traditional voting blocks within the Democratic Party as they expected her to be. And the only group she's really doing well with, to your point, is women. The gender gap is real. Harris has got 39% of men. Trump has got 56% of men. Harris has got 53% of women. Trump has got 42% of them. But there's only so far the sort of interesting message of love and abortion can get you.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of, to me, it could all be distilled down into the concept of a sanctuary city. If you wanted to kind of go, well, what's a feminine thought? What's a masculine thought? You know, and you could talk about energy and taxation and borders and things like that. But the cities that went, we are a sanctuary city, all are welcome, all shall be treated with dignity and respect and love, and have zero plans in place when the buses started pulling up, and now people are splayed out in the parks and the streets and in the gymnasiums where the taxpayers' kids used to play, and so on and so forth. That is the actual representation of good vibes policy. It sounds awesome. You know what I mean? We're sanctuary city. Everyone's welcome. There are no humans illegal. What actually happens when people start spilling into the city?
You know what, Adam, I'm
chaos
listening to you. I'm so
destruction.
annoyed. I'm annoyed because it's like, this isn't feminine. Feminine women are Republicans. Not all of them, but generally the women in the Republican Party tend to be feminine and strong and amazing, and the men more and more are more masculine. And if you look at not all Democrats, a lot of my friends are wonderful Democrats, but the left, the progressive left, this is not what a woman is. This sort of afraid, overly emotional, lead with love and let the illegals. That is the worst kind of feminism I've ever seen. I don't understand these women at all. They don't represent me or any of.
And to be clear, you know, Margaret Thatcher was a female who did not embody these thoughts that we speak of. And when I talk about this in private, your name comes up as one of the leaders in the clubhouse of females who should not be mistaken for this kind of thinking.
Thank you. Yes. But it's like, I hate the way it's going. Like, the Democrat Party is the party of no spine unless it comes to shutting you up and shoving wokeness down your throat. And the Republican Party has all of the strength and the robust nature that's necessary for governing, but as a result will be made into demons by that left, which happens to control all of the message boards throughout the country and beyond. That's really what's happening. And they're gonna claim feminism and womanhood. These women who are gonna vote for Kamala Harris somehow represent like the feminism, like the new feminism in America. And I just reject that. Feminists, what feminists should be is strong, fierce, smart women who stand up for what they believe in, but haven't forgotten the glories of being a woman, the wonders of softness, and not overly emotionalism, but emotionalism, where that's why men love us. They need a soft place to fall. They need, my husband and I go in to see like the decorator, and we're redecorating a room, and it's like the decorator's talking about all the wallpapers and the, you know, sofas, and then he gets to the cost and he's like, well, and he looks at Doug when he says what the number's going to be. And Doug's like, well, I don't know about, and I'm like, YOLO!
Yeah.
But it works. Like, that's how men and women work together. One is more sober and one is more fun, or one is more of the, whatever. They want men out of the picture altogether. All they want is the far left angry woman who's going to emasculate men. All of it makes me recoil.
You know, I think what we need to do from a message standpoint, I agree with your soliloquy. What we need to do is, as the guy, you know, I'm the guy going at home, diet and exercise. These kids got to get some exercise, and no, you can't eat taffy for breakfast and whatever. And then I get labeled as the mean one.
Fine.
Because I'm saying that. And I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about that's sort of coming out of conservatism is diet and exercise. And now we're being labeled mean because their personal trainer wants them to watch TV and eat fudge.
They will be dead by age 50.
Right. And I'm saying, I'm not a bad person for suggesting you do things that are good for you. That makes me a good person who doesn't dance like Ellen. But I know you don't like the message, and I know you don't want to get up and do some road work in the morning. And I know you would rather have Honey Smack cereal than a poached egg. But let's not confuse me with someone who's hurting somebody. I'm actually helping somebody. And there's a lot of that, like, for instance, even going way back, here in LA especially. You know, they had an English only in school thing. And then all the nice people were going, they should be taught in their native tongue. And it's like, yeah, and then they graduate and they can't speak English and they can't get a job. So who's the mean one in this equation? The guy who says, let them learn English in the first and second grade and they'll get fluent in it and they'll move on and then they could get a job, or the nice person who's saying teach them in their mother language?
Better to have a couple rough years when you're 7 than when you're 20 looking for a job.
I'm saying diet. You're saying Ozempic. You know what I mean? Why am I the bad one in this equation? COVID comes down the pike, and I'm saying lose some weight, get some exercise, and everyone's yelling at me, get vaccinated and stay home. And I'm like, shut the school down. I'm saying open the school. I'm the bad guy for saying open the school. Now the kids have fallen off. They're way behind. Depression, suicide, whatever comes along with sheltering in place for 2 damn years. Why am I the bad guy in this equation?
And then when you are proven right, they move on. They don't admit it. They move on. They may do the same quote mistakes, and a new way forward, you might call it. It's getting easier. I mean, I will say it's easier. When I was in the city at the school I just referenced, where they're asking our boys if they're girls every week, we formed this sort of underground network of parents. And that's where I met the friend I was telling you. And as I mentioned, she and her husband are Black. They did not appreciate the messages going to their brilliant son that he was somehow less than because of the color of his skin, which was the implicit message of America's original sin, and there's really no way around it, and you somehow are divided from your white and your Indian, your brown-skinned classmates, and you Hispanics too, you're in the same boat. She and the other parents of color were as mad as we were, where they were saying, as I've told you the world before, about the white kids, in every classroom where white children learn, there's a future killer cop. And teaching that there are 100 genders, and refusing to refer to the boys as boys now, or as your sons as sons. Now it's just your student. This hit the news just this week that in Vermont, there's this school. It's like, I'll pull up the name, like Founders. I can't remember. It's like Friends. I'll figure it out. Where they're getting rid of, same thing. They're only referring to boys as people who make sperm, and girls as people who make eggs. In school now. And these parents in Vermont, this is not, this is Vermont, which is a blue state, but come on, it's still America, where they're saying what is it? Essex, Westford in Vermont. And this is being allowed, Pat. I mean, it's being allowed.
Yeah, this, again, for me, sometimes when I was younger and I had a bad idea, or let's just say a dumb idea, and I would go to my dad and I would say, Dad, I want to do this. And Dad would say, okay, here we go. Pat's got another crazy idea, and I'm 12 years old, or I'm 8 years old, or I'm 16 years old. And he knows I'm going to fail, and I would go execute this idea, and I don't execute it because it's a terrible idea. And I'd come back and say, you know what, Dad? It didn't work. Yeah, you were kind of right. But of course, we don't tell our dads he was right. And we would do more of these things. Sometimes it happens in a company, a department comes to you, and they say, Patrick, we have an idea. We need a $100,000 budget for this. If it's a hit, it could be this, it could be. I'm like, I'm not going to give you a $100,000 budget, but here's 10 grand and go see at the lowest level and see what you can do. And then come back, boom, it fails. Or they come back and it says it works. Okay. So the best part about ideas, or if somebody claims, watch me, you're going to see what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something really special about my life. Great. You know what's going to validate whether you do or not? Time. 10 years later, people are going to say, no, you were really all talk. You were not a doer. Unfortunately, you've been a talker, and that's your label. You get labeled a talker. You get labeled somebody who talks a big game but doesn't come through. In our family, I had an uncle that I would always get compared to because my dad is 5'9", 5'10", I'm 6'5", which is kind of confusing for a Middle Eastern guy to be 6'5", so everybody would look at the mailman to see if he was tall. No, my dad's brother is 6'5". So I took my height after this uncle called Johnny. And Johnny had a reputation. He was the smartest guy. He would smoke a pipe, and he would read physics books for a hobby. Who the hell reads physics books for a hobby? Well, my Uncle Johnny would do that. And he was my favorite uncle. He would take us to this place that he would buy me Nutella. In Iran, if you eat Nutella, you're apparently rich. So I would eat Nutella every 6 months. And, you would kind of experiment. I really love this Uncle Johnny. One day, my dad tells me Uncle Johnny's reputation and what his nickname is. His nickname was 70% Johnny. What's 70% Johnny? Johnny was the smartest guy in our family, great with numbers, great with a lot of different things. And he would always go and start a project, and he would go to 70% of completion, and he would stop. He would go, 70% and stop. That was a great idea. 70%, stop. So eventually everybody said, man, Johnny, you got great ideas, but you never execute. Today, all of these people that are coming up with these trans-able, is what I identify as blind. I identify as this. Dwayne Wade said, well, I can't identify myself as somebody that can live in the state of Florida. It's too extreme of policies with what the governor's doing there, with a trans kid. I have decided to take my kids to a different place. No problem.
Yeah.
Today, he may seem like a noble parent. And it may look like, what a sweet father. What a great mother you guys are. Obviously the biological mother didn't support it, but Dwayne Wade, more power to you. But in 10 years, when that kid is 25 years old, in 20 years, when that kid is 35 years old, that kid is going to say, why'd you let me do that as a 13, 14? I had no clue what I was doing. Why'd you let me make a decision like that? Why didn't you wait till I was an adult? Why'd you do that, Dad? Then we are all going to realize whether that decision that was made in 2023 or 2022, it was a bad decision. And unfortunately, Megyn, this is the problem. Unfortunately, some of these shitty ideas these guys are coming up with that are seeming like they're such noble people, it's going to take 10 to 20 years to realize they were horrible ideas. And a lot of people, especially helpless people like kids, are going to suffer the consequences. So as loud as many of us are going to be, as much as we're going to go out there and present common sense, unfortunately, some of these bad ideas are creating momentum, and it's hurting the people that are helpless.
Look, you can go to Brazil or Colombia or Korea or wherever and get crazy stuff done to your face. But why would you do that? Now you can look years younger, right before your very eyes, without all those weird interventions. That is, during the Genucel Mother's Day sale. Here's a real review from Genucel.com. Claire writes, I absolutely love Genucel. My skin feels so good, tighter, younger, with a more even tone, and I only used it for a week. My advice for everyone, take a before picture. Her husband, Jim, writes in with this, wife loves it. Ever since I purchased it for her, things got much more interesting after dark, enough said. It's true. Nothing works like Genucel because it's a family recipe for over 20 years, made by a compounding pharmacist in small batches, and always safe, cruelty-free, and natural. Go to Genucel.com/MK60 and save over 70% off Genucel's most popular package, all their best stuff, during their Mother's Day sale. Every most popular package features their Ultra Retinol and Dark Spot Corrector. Don't wait. Go to Genucel.com/MK60. Genucel.com/MK60. Get a complimentary Spa Essentials box with every package order from now through Mother's Day. Plus, free upgrade to priority shipping. GENUCEL.com/MK60. Genucel.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.
When I was in 8th grade, I was, always watching, and I was playing basketball. I was watching kind of the varsity basketball team at the high school I was going to go to. And there was this one guy who looked like, the most incredible athlete I've ever seen. And to this day, I still think he's probably one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. I mean, he could jump as high as anyone could ever jump. He could 360 dunk. He could do anything on the basketball court at will during practice. But when he got in the game, it's like he played, a half version of what he was capable of every time. It's like he didn't believe in himself. And everyone around him was like, you're incredible. You're the best. You're a freak of nature athlete. You can do anything at will. You can score at any time. But he didn't believe he could. And so he would do it in practice, but in the games, he would always fall short. And I was like, just give me a fraction of your talent, please. Because it didn't matter if the world is against you or doesn't believe in you. If you can believe in yourself, then you can do great things like you've done, Megyn. But here's the sad thing is that it doesn't matter if you don't believe in yourself and the world does believe in you, you're not going to be able to do it. So we must get either the encouragement from others to put it into ourselves, or we must take it from within and put it outward. But you had encouraging parents, but you also were encouraged internally, which I think was powerful.
You're so right. And I know in your book you mentioned Jason Redman, who was injured gravely and shot through the eye and put up the sign on the outside, like, do not come in here if it's to feel sorry for me. This is a positive place. He believed he could recover. He defined what that would mean for him. And I met him years and years ago, as like 2009 or 10 at a Navy SEALs benefit. And that's what the SEALs say. Say I can't. Say I can't. Like, their whole mentality is, the more you tell me I can't do it, the more I guarantee you I can. That's who's attracted to the SEALs. That's the kind of mentality that the SEALs organization is attracted to. It's one of the reasons the SEALs are so incredible. They've got the thing that you're saying is the magic, but not everybody has it, and it's gettable. Just because if you're not a SEAL, you don't have the mentality, say I can't.
Right.
It's gettable. That's kind of the main theme of your book, and it kind of helps people figure out, how do I get it?
Yeah, there are three main causes of self-doubt, in my opinion, from kind of all the people that I've studied and all the experts and all the world-class athletes and the billionaires, a lot of people that you know as well. There's these three main fears that causes people to really hold back from taking action on what they want, whether it's in the relationship with a career or launching the business or whatever it is that they feel inside they're called to do, but they're afraid. There are three main fears that cause them to doubt themselves. The first fear, which is a lot of people have, is the fear of failure. And as an athlete, Megyn, growing up, I learned quickly that failure was just the path to success. It was just, this is the necessary steps you got to take. You're going to miss the shot when you shoot it. You're going to drop a ball when you're trying to play football. It's just going to happen. And this is information. It's feedback telling you what you need to do to improve, to accomplish your goals. So I understood that from coaches that taught me this. But a lot of people are just afraid of failure, and so they won't take the actions. That was never my fear. I had another one. The second fear is the fear of success. I always wanted to succeed, Megyn. That wasn't my fear. I was like, I want to be someone. I want to make something of myself because I didn't love myself enough. So I felt like I needed something externally to fill it internally what I was missing. So I was like driven by success, and I love to get closer to it and accomplish it. But as I started to do this research, really over the last 10 years of my show and interviewing people, I realized that so many people are afraid of success. And when I'll speak in public and I'll ask people, who here is afraid of the success, most of the room raises their hand, maybe like 67%. And it always kind of blows me away. But the more I studied this, it makes sense, because there's a documentary, Megyn, called The Weight of Gold, which is about Olympic gold medalists who go through depression, anxiety, they go through overdosing, they get on drugs or committing suicide within, 6 to 12 months after winning the Olympic gold medal. There is a pressure to success that a lot of people aren't prepared for, and they haven't been taught how to manage. I'm sure you've experienced this in different levels when you became more well-known, more famous, more financially successful. There might have been people trying to pull you down, or maybe people saying, hey, from high school or college saying, hey, I need some money, or can you help me out here? There are different things that might happen to us as we become more successful, where people doubt us, they try to pull us back down to their comfort level, they criticize us. You're just more available to that criticism, and people don't like it. It's uncomfortable. It can be lonely at the top, people say.
If you're like me, you're growing more and more concerned about the future. The market is all over the place, and inflation is at its highest level in 40 years. Interest rates are skyrocketing. Market experts not only predict a recession, but they're using scary terms like economic hurricane and unprecedented. If you want to protect your future, consider the precious metal dealer, American Hartford Gold. They can show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio with physical gold and silver. All it takes to get started is a short phone call, and they will have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And they keep it simple. This is the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. And now, as an exclusive offer for our fans, if you call them right now, they're going to give you up to $1,500 of free silver and a free safe too on qualifying orders. So don't wait, call now. Call 866-518-2955. 866-518-2955 or text Megyn,
That's MEGYN to 65532. Again, call 866-518-2955 or text MEGYN to 65532.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. And I just don't know what we're supposed to do with 40 babies decapitated. How is that a group we can talk to about anything?
Well, obviously, the great moral sickness of the West is its intention to continue moral equivalency between one group of people who wish to defend children and one group of people who wish to murder them as often as humanly possible. I've seen pictures that have not been made public of families burned and babies beheaded and all the rest of this sort of stuff. And this is what Hamas intended to do. This is what they always intended to do. This has been in their charter since 1987. There are no surprises here. The only surprise is that it took this long for Hamas to be successful. But this has been their intention all along. The Palestinian Authority, the Palestine Liberation Organization, pays actual bounties to terrorist families. Islamic Jihad is a terrorist group. And yet the West has spent the last 30, 40 years pretending that there was some sort of deal that could be cut here. I think that the Israeli government was under the impression since 2006, when they completely pulled out of the Gaza Strip. In 2005, they pulled literally thousands of Jews out of their homes in the northern tip of the Gaza Strip and turned over the entire area to the Palestinians, who promptly burned every Jewish home and greenhouse, and then voted for Hamas. They voted Hamas into power. Hamas has been the governing power in the Gaza Strip since 2006, so for 17 years. And they've been launching rocket attacks ever since into Israel. Israel believed that because of the security barrier, the touch fence, and because of Iron Dome, which shoots down the rockets that are fired routinely from Gaza, that they could live with some semblance of at least quasi-normalcy, although it's hard to describe normalcy, as you have to run into a bunker every few months for a week or so while rockets rain down on your home, but it was at least livable. What's happened over the course of the last few days is not only catastrophic, but it demonstrates, number one, why there needs to be a state of Israel, why the state of Israel exists, why the notion of a Jewish state to defend Jews exists. It really exposes the moral vacuity of many people in the West for precisely what it is. And it shows more than anything else what evil actually looks like. And so it's been my intention throughout this conflict to show what exactly the Hamas terrorists wish to do, what their government wishes to do, what their sympathizers wish to do in the most graphic detail. They're not shy about it. I mean, what's truly incredible is this is the worst weekend. Saturday was the worst day for Jews since the Holocaust in terms of mass death. And what's truly amazing is that even the Nazis were ashamed enough of what they were doing, at least in the public eye, that as World War II ended, they attempted to cover up what they had done. These modern day Nazis carrying out Einsatzgruppen-style shootings of Jews, murdering babies, murdering pregnant mothers, pulling the fetuses out of their stomach and letting the babies die, still connected with the mother. There's a report of that. These sorts of reports, these are glorified by Hamas. These are touted on social media. The videos that I've been playing on my show are not videos taken by Israelis. These are videos that are taken by Hamas members and then trumpeted around social media. And it's causing celebrations in places ranging from London to Sydney to the streets of New York by a certain group of people and their sympathizers. And evil exists, and it doesn't just exist inside the Gaza Strip. It exists in the hearts of human beings who somehow believe that there's moral equivalency between people who wish to rape women, murder them, parade their bodies through Gaza, and people who want to defend themselves and live normal lives. I mean, it's astonishing. And if the world goes back to that level of moral equivalence after this, if the world somehow in the next few days says that Israel has to stop or has to declare a ceasefire with people who just murdered their children and are currently holding babies, literal 9-month-old babies, in captivity pending their execution, then I don't know. The whole point of the state of Israel is that Jews no longer have to ask permission to defend themselves, and that's certainly the case today.
This is about the atrocities that were unleashed on Israel by this terrorist group on Saturday. This isn't about Palestine and the blockade. I don't see it as about any of that, but that's what the left wants to make it about. And so I want to just spend 1 minute on it because most people don't know the history, Ben, like you do. And you're hearing things like, but the blockade and collective punishment, that's a war crime. Ilhan Omar's spewing that nonsense, saying you can't hold all of the Gazans, all of the Palestinians responsible for the actions of Hamas, of their leadership. And I think, you mentioned it, but it's important just to remind the audience what you just said. In 2005, Israel got all of its citizens out of this area. They got them all out, insisted that they leave at some points at gunpoint and said, take it, have it, it's yours, we're out. And it wasn't until within, 2 years that Hamas won the election, which is a terrorist group, our State Department recognizes that, and started bombing Israel again, that Israel said, all right, we're going to have to do something to prevent this group from getting weapons. And they allow food and all that stuff to go in, but they try to do what they can to make sure that they don't amass weapons and rockets to unleash on Israel. That's the so-called blockade. This is what now people are saying, oh, look at how Israel's forcing these poor people to live. Israel wasn't doing that. It gave them this area and said, we're out, you're good. It was Hamas that started the murder back in this 2005, 2006, 2007 period. You tell it because you know it much better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, Hamas has been participating in murderous activity since their founding in 1987, 1988. They're a Muslim Brotherhood offshoot. But the pullout from Gaza is proof positive that when people say that they want context, the context literally does not matter to them, because the fact of the matter here is, again, that Israel unilaterally pulled out of the Gaza Strip in an attempt to create some sort of security arrangement and presumably protect the Jews at the northern tip of the Gaza Strip and allow the Palestinians some chance at electing a government. They then promptly elected Hamas, a State Department designated terror group, in an election that was fully legitimate, as attested to by Jimmy Carter. They elected Hamas. They haven't had an election since, but the polls tend to show heavy levels of support for Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Israel, by the way, has been providing electricity for free to this area. Israel has been providing water to this area. Israel ships in humanitarian goods to this area. Israel, over the last year, has provided 15,000 I won't use the Hebrew, the license that allows them to move into Israel and work there. A lot of people are on work permits inside Israel. If Hamas were not the governing power in the Gaza Strip, and if the Palestinians had chosen a government that actually sought to build, Israel would be, there's literally no one in Israel, no one, right, left, center, who would not wish to build up the economy of the Gaza Strip and turn it into a peaceful neighbor. That would be the greatest wish of the Jews in Israel. They don't have a peace partner. They never have. In fact, they wanted a sewage system in the Gaza Strip, and so pipes were shipped into the Gaza Strip. Hamas promptly took those pipes and carved them. They repurposed them into the body of rockets, into rocket tubes. The cement that is poured into the Gaza Strip to build infrastructure was used by Hamas to build terror tunnels. And this is what Hamas does. I mean, they overtly say this in their charter. Again, it's not as though they're hiding the ball. There are no secrets here. No. Hamas hides behind civilians. Hamas it literally places its headquarters, its military headquarters, is underneath a hospital. I mean, imagine if the United States put its Pentagon beneath a hospital deliberately in order to maximize civilian casualties. And there's plentiful video of Israeli forces calling up members of Hamas outside of a building. They warned before. Historically, Israel has warned people in areas about to get hit, which is insane, by the way. Military targets. They've warned people, get the civilians out before they hit the targets. And there's tape of them calling members of Hamas and saying, get everybody out of this building. And members of Hamas saying, we don't want them out of the building. We want them in the building. That's the whole point. Why do you think that we are locating a rocket fire from inside apartment buildings and behind apartment buildings? The whole goal is to maximize Palestinian civilian casualties so that they can then blame Israel. And then they can claim that some human rights violation is going on after they provoke violence in the first place. So again, the attempt to tie this to settlements is insane, because again, there are no settlements inside the Gaza Strip. The areas that were attacked here have been part of the state of Israel since 1948. And this is not post-67 settlements in the West Bank, in the so-called West Bank, Judea and Samaria. All of the normal political tropes here do not apply. All of the usual lines here about if only Israel had been more generous during, like, none of that applies to the Gaza Strip. And it's utterly insane that anybody is attempting to apply that same narrative, especially because Israel has offered Egypt, for example, control over the Gaza Strip. And you know what Egypt said? They said, hell no, we don't want control over the Gaza Strip because Hamas is in control. There are a lot of terrorists over there. In fact, right now, Israel has been telling civilians to get out of the most dangerous areas in the Gaza Strip pending some sort of attack. And civilians have been rushing down to the Rafah border, which is the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt. Egypt has closed the border. Egypt will not allow Palestinian civilians to enter the Sinai Desert in order to escape the carnage. Israel is attempting to make provision for those people. Israel cares more about Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip than Hamas does by a long shot.
Mm-hmm. We did a story a couple of years ago. I actually tweeted out the episode. It was like a, Israel-Palestine primer for dummies. And one of the things that I saw in preparing for that show was an AP reporter back in 2014 came out and admitted that the AP building that was in this region Hamas was intentionally letting off rockets right next to the AP building, thinking that we wouldn't target, or Israel wouldn't target this AP building. But that AP reporter eventually came out and said, our AP photographers would go to the hospital and they were basically in on it. They would photograph the Palestinians bringing their young children or babies who'd been hit in a retaliatory Israeli rocket attack. And they would use them for propaganda to put them on TV saying, look at the terrible Israelis, look what they're doing. And then as soon as all the military-age fighters who were coming out of the hospital after being treated or going into the hospital with injuries, they would turn off the cameras. The AP was helping the propaganda war so that the Palestinians could get their message out, which is the terrible, evil Israelis. All they do is target our children when, of course, the truth is Israel bends over backwards not to hit the civilians. And the AP was completely complicit in this dishonest message.
They kill their own soldiers in order to save civilians. I mean, this has been the story of Israel for many, many years. They literally put their own soldiers in harm's way in order to minimize civilian casualties in the same way that American soldiers very often put in harm's way with very difficult rules of engagement in order to minimize civilian casualties in war zones. I mean, Israel, on this score, there's a term in Hebrew called taharat haneshek, which is cleanliness of arms. And that's the basic idea, purity of arms. The basic idea is to minimize civilian casualties. I mean, there are so many obviously telling facts about the politics of the situation. Telling fact number one, there are no Jews living in the Gaza Strip. There are no Jews living in Palestinian cities in the West Bank. 20% of the population of Israel is Arab. There are Arab parties in Knesset right now who are anti-Hamas, who have come out against these Hamas attacks. Fact number two, Israeli Arabs, when asked if they would like to join a nascent state of Palestine under either Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or Islamic Jihad, overwhelmingly say no. They're not particularly fond of the state of Israel, but they overwhelmingly would prefer to remain in the state of Israel than go to these supposed zones, even if there were to be some sort of peace deal, because they understand exactly what the governance would look like. And again, fact number three is that the Gaza Strip has been under Palestinian control for 20 years. And the Palestine Liberation Organization, which turned into the PA, was founded in 1964 before the Six-Day War, when the so-called Green Line did not exist, when there was no Green Line, because all of that territory was being controlled by Jordan. So anybody who's attempting to number one, first of all, any justification of beheading babies, it should show you who exactly is doing the justifying. And I don't believe you. If you're a pseudo-sophisticate who's pretending that you don't understand what this conflict is all about at this point, you're beyond repair. I mean, you're just morally broken, and there's no way to fix that. But anybody who's attempting to fit this into the context of a history and pretend that Hamas is some sort of legitimate political party and legitimate political body that shouldn't be eradicated, I don't know what to tell you. Let's just put it this way. If this sort of nonsense happened on America's border, if what we were seeing on America's southern border were not migrants crossing the border, some of whom have criminal records, some of whom commit acts of violence, but if it were 1,500 terrorists who crossed the American southern border and then proceeded to go into El Paso, Texas and murder like 30,000 Americans, which is the population equivalent here because America is a much larger and more populous country than the state of Israel, I highly doubt anybody would be calling for tremendous levels of restraint from the American government or military in attempting to secure its population.
Okay, let's talk candy. Goods Candies. They are a new sponsor and not your average chocolate shop. Nestled in a small town in rural Indiana, Goods Candies has been serving its community since the Great Depression. Goods Candies takes pride in its farmhouse-style, small batch production using only the finest premium ingredients. Trust me, when you bite into a Goods Candies creation, you will instantly taste the difference. This is a delicious candy. They have indulgent toffees, salted caramels, and all kinds of chocolates with unique cream centers like raspberry, maple, yum, mint, orange, to name just a few. Whatever your pleasure, it's there. Selecting your goodie bag is all part of the fun. They also do customized chocolate bars with your company logo on them or your family name or a message. Could be the perfect client gift or a holiday gift or hostess gift from you. It's unique and it's delicious, and it's a great way for your clients to think about you and your business, or your family and friends to think about you. For our viewers, they are offering a 20% discount when you use the promo code MK2023. While placing your order, the website is goodscandies.com, and their email address is goodscandies@goodscandies.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. Our next guest has some more on Ms. Crockett. He's Benny Johnson. He's host of The Benny Show, and he has an exclusive report now on Crockett's alleged background. See, he traveled to where Crockett claims she is from a tough area of South Dallas. You know, you hear her speak. She tries to talk street like, okay. Compared to where she's actually from, it's quite a different picture. Where she's actually from is a beautiful, well-manicured area for the elite and highly educated. Here is a clip from Benny's report.
It is rough, it is tough, it is hood, and it is foul, just like Jasmine Crockett. That's the whole persona. She's a fraud. This is where Jasmine says she's from, but this is where Jasmine's really from.
Welcome to St. Louis, specifically the Republican suburbs of St. Louis, with the mansions, country clubs, and private schools. This is where Jasmine Crockett was raised. We're talking quiet suburbs, manicured lawns, college brochures in the mailbox.
And this is where Jasmine Crockett went to school. It's called the Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day School. It's one of the most prestigious institutions in the entire country, also one of the most expensive. This is the #1 school in the entire state of Missouri. It costs $35,000 per year to attend high school here. And the reason why is because the average test scores here guarantee your placement in an elite college institution. It's one of the best preparatory schools in the world. Did your high school have its own private Wimbledon? Did your high school have its own aquatic center on site? Did your high school have its own private dock and pond teeming with colorful fish and wildlife? I think not.
OMG.
After graduating from this elite country day school, Jasmine Crockett was immediately accepted at another elite institution, Rhodes College in Tennessee.
Jasmine went on to attend and graduate from the University of Houston Law Center. In total, Jasmine Crockett's elite education cost close to $1 million.
Benny Johnson joins me now. Benny, this is unbelievable. We have another AOC on our hands, and you did the same treatment to her.
Yes. Okay, so here's my question for you, Megyn. Maybe you can help me diagnose this. You're a bit of a doctor on these things. What is with the working class stolen valor with elitist, left-wing, insufferable, narcissistic women? I don't understand it. First, you have Kamala Harris saying she worked the fries, which, of course, everybody at McDonald's will tell you is totally fraudulent. She never proved any of it. And then you have AOC saying she's a girl from the Bronx. That's an absolute bona fide lie. She grew up in a $500,000 house in a leafy suburb north of the city by 90 minutes. A wonderful, very clean, very safe neighborhood. And now you have Jasmine Crockett, who, Megyn, I don't know where you come from, but I can tell you where I come from. Jasmine Crockett grew up so much more elite and wealthy and privileged and pampered than anyone that I know. She's so egalitarian. She's so silver spoon. So the entire thing is an act, and I call it working class stolen valor, Megyn. And I love exposing it. And my only, I guess, takeaway from this is these people must really engage in a lot of self-loathing. I'm no psychiatrist, Megyn, but they must really hate themselves. They must be so embarrassed about where they come from, who they are, who created them. And it really sets in stark contrast the President of the United States, who's never apologized for who he was, who's always owned that he was a billionaire, who's always been aspirational, something to look up to and something people want to become, instead of someone who dumbs themselves down or lies about where they come from to try to be more hood.
Yes, that's what she's doing all the time. And she didn't talk like this before either, where she's like, y'all, I know, my homie, and I'm like, okay, that didn't exist. We ran tape from her. Before she ran for office, she sounded like a normal person. But now she's gone full street with the super long nails too, and like the lips and the gloss and like the eyelashes. She's really laying it on because she wants to be seen as like this down-home girl who gets hood.
In my mind, I'm thinking, I just got to Austin and I had to meet 5 people to get here. I don't know about this.
So y'all don't know what white privilege looks like, but I'm gonna show you a little bit of something.
It's a huge responsibility. You know, the congressional seat is over 4 times as large as my House seat.
I'm trying to get clarification.
Look at, calm down.
calm down.
No, because this is what y'all do.
And I was just starting to get into the rhythm of doing constituent services.
They send them to Texas, they send them to Florida. Every deplorable state that we can think about, they usually coming out of y'all's think tank.
There was someone that talked to me and said, in fact, a former ambassador in the Clinton administration.
Please calm down.
Don't tell me to calm down.
Calm down.
Because y'all talk noise and then
You're out of control.
He said, Jasmine, what you have to realize is that if you are really going to make change, it's not going to be in the Texas House. He said, you did a great job playing defense, but you have a chance to play offense.
If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body.
Meanwhile, you pointed out, like, her high school looks like a castle, Benny. It looks like the most elitist country club I've ever seen.
Oh, it was. I mean, what we shot there doesn't even do it justice. It's fine. It looks like Oxford. It's an absolute beautiful castle. Also, she went to Rhodes College. Rhodes College, nestled in the rolling hills outside of leafy Memphis, Tennessee, cost $74,000 per year. Megyn, I went to community college and then state school. And I actually literally worked in fast food in order to pay for that. And so I just don't understand it. I don't get why they can't just embrace who they are and where they come from. Why do they have to code switch? It seems like a real psychological crisis. But what I know about the American electorate is that they don't like inauthenticity. They don't like habitual liars and pathological liars. And this is going to be a huge problem for the Democrat Party going forward, the inability to just be authentic with people. Nobody believed Kamala Harris when she said on Drew Barrymore's show, I know you were going off on Drew Barrymore, on Drew Barrymore's show, I did the fries. Nobody believes that, right? And then President Trump comes in what I would argue is one of the greatest campaign moves of all time, and works the fries as a billionaire, rolls up his sleeves, gets salt in his eyes, gets grease on his skin, and hands people Happy Meals, literally and metaphorically. And that was just one of the greatest cell phones of all time. And they're opening themselves up for these kind of attacks, and it's beautiful. The video's done millions of views. And
anything that ends with day school is nicer than 99.9% of what the rest of us did, which was public high school. My parents paid taxes. Yes. They had to take me. Sorry. There's another clip that we pulled from your presentation. You got to watch the Benny Show to see the full thing. Here it is as you take on her district in South Dallas compared to her hometown.
Here's what your average street looks like in South Dallas, where Jasmine Crockett represents.
Best part about Jasmine Crockett's district is free public bathrooms.
And here's what your average street looks like in St. Louis, in the suburbs where Jasmine Crockett's from.
Here's an elementary school in the heart of Jasmine Crockett's district. Let's go ahead and check on the environment in which these kids are learning. You have burned down buildings in every direction. Nothing's open. FDJT has been tagged on this building. Here's the walkway to school in Crockett's district. This is what the children have to walk through every single day.
It's filth.
I don't know how many booze bottles there are, how many beer cans, and how much junk.
And here's what a school looks like in St. Louis. And here's what stores and shopping centers look like in South Dallas. And here's what stores and shopping centers look like in St. Louis. Get the point?
I love the use of the classical music when you go back to the St. Louis area. Quite a disparity.
People that have gone. These are the same people, Megyn, who continue to go off about how they just want you to live your authentic self. They want you to embrace who you are. It's all about everybody just being who they want to be, loving who they want to love, embracing what they truly are. And it's just a lie. They're just so fraudulent. They can't even accept where they come from. And more importantly, when they tell you they're from the struggle, as Jasmine Crockett does, as she code switches to being a hood rat, what she's actually doing is taking advantage of people who are truly struggling, using them for power so that she can get on MSNBC and then run for president and do absolutely nothing. I am in Dallas right now. I'm actually at the airport about to go catch my flight. I'm telling you, we have heartbreaking stories from the people in Jasmine Crockett's district who are truly suffering, who's never seen her. They don't know who she is. They've never met her. She represents them. It's not a terribly large district. And she, according to all available reports, has just abandoned them for an MSNBC green room. And it's, I think it's immoral, actually.
Well, I like what you said about stolen valor. I totally agree with that, because it's like people who did grow up struggling do not need glommers like Crockett and AOC trying to pretend that they understand what it was like to actually worry about whether you're going to be able to put food on the table, which is something AOC claims she understands and she doesn't. I mean, unless she literally means place the plate on the table, because she did have a waitressing job, as did virtually every young woman in her entire life. But it's true, because look, if you've got $35,000 a year to spend on a day school, you do not understand the plight of working class people, and you should be ashamed of yourself for pretending you do, because they have a certain background and certain struggles that you will never understand, especially if you don't stay in your district and glad hand with them to try to understand them, Benny. According to the New York Post, she's hauled up in her beautiful hotel in D.C. and insisting that her staff drive her around in a, what's the nice one? Not the Chevy Suburban, the nicer one above that. The Escalade. Yeah, everywhere, because she wants to be Madam Queen.
Yeah, Escalade, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense, her entitlement and her elitism. When you read that New York Post article, I'm sitting here in Dallas doing this piece, and when you read that New York Post article, you're like, wow, this is actually where the elitism comes from. Somebody who begins their life with nothing and comes from nothing is going to treat people very nicely. If they're shining shoes at the airport, if they're serving them a bag of fries and a Big Mac, you're going to treat that person with dignity and respect. That's what actual servant leadership looks like, rolling up your sleeves and serving the fries yourself. What elitism and an insane amount of privilege looks like, Megyn, is treating people like garbage who work for you and who are beneath you, at least in your imagination. And I think that Jasmine Crockett is going to find out very, very quickly that there are a lot of people who that's not going to fly with.
Since President Trump was sworn in, his administration has made enormous progress at a breakneck pace. But don't forget, while they are moving mountains for the good of the nation, you've got your personal savings to worry about. And one of the best ways to look after your savings is through diversification, particularly with gold, like from Birch Gold Group. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. And Birch was an advertiser on this show 12 months ago. If you had purchased then, you'd be 40% richer today. Now's the time. Central banks continue to bolster demand for gold by burying in record quantities. Global instability and tension is high, and Birch Gold makes owning physical gold so easy. Easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or buy some to store in your home safe. Just text MK to the number 989898, and Birch Gold is going to send you a free info kit on gold. Look into it, see if it's right for you. There's no obligation, just useful information to help you make a decision. With an A+ rating, with a Better Business Bureau, and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of your savings today. Text MK to 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes. Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and this weekend Best of Special. What a week. We had our pals from the Ruthless program on to talk about Jen Psaki's outrageous lie in her new book that President Biden didn't really check his watch during the Afghanistan fallen soldier ceremony. Hello, there's video. How on earth did she think she was going to get away with this? Marcia Clark and Mark Garagos were here to react with me in real time to the news that Donald Trump was going to debate President Biden. It's happening next month on CNN. And of course, the Trump trial kicked into high gear this week. We had Phil Holloway and Viva Fry on to dive into the prosecutor's star witness, convicted felon Michael Cohen. We also had entrepreneur and author Gary Vaynerchuk here for the first time to talk about the way parents are today and the way they raise their kids without consequences and accountability and with never-ending trophies. It was a super fun conversation, and he had a lot of good advice for those of you who are trying to grow your business online. Enjoy, and I'll see you Monday. I'm going to start with
Jen Psaki, because I think what she did is so gross. And she's just gross. So she has written a book. Let me see if I can find it. I have so many papers today. Kelly McGuire, tell me what page this is on if you can in my packet. She's written a book. And in her book, she decided that it might be a good idea to describe and rehabilitate President Biden's incident at Andrews Air Force Base when the remains of our fallen soldiers in Afghanistan were returned after his debacle of a withdrawal from that war. And the name of her book is Say More, Lessons from Work, the White House, and the World. And I guess her lessons are when something bad happens, you just lie about it. And that makes perfect sense, given that she was his press secretary and now she works for MSNBC. Here is what she wrote. This is per Axios, which has a copy. The president, now this is when, at Andrews, when he, infamously looked at that watch as the remains were in front of him. Per Axios, Psaki writes, the president looked at his watch only after the ceremony had ended. Moments later, he and the First Lady headed toward their car. She also writes that Biden's critics were engaged in, quote, misinformation and used the image to make him appear insensitive, concerned only about how much time had passed. Okay, none of that is true. He checked his watch during the ceremony repeatedly, not just once look at this. This is while the bodies are still in front of him. He tries to slide it in there. He looks at his watch. Even his most ardent defenders at the time who tried to fact check the claims that he checked his watch had to wind up admitting, all right, he did. In fact, he didn't just do it that once. He did it repeatedly. He wanted to get the thing over with. He was sick. There he is again. He was sick and tired of having to stand there and honor the fallen soldiers at Dover. We've talked about it repeatedly on this show. I'm sure you guys have talked about it as well. And she has the nerve to try to launder that moment in advance of an election by saying it wasn't until the whole thing was over. It is a lie, and it is a material lie she told in that book. Now, her account is not only at odds with what we saw with our eyes, but with fact checks done at the time, news agencies' photos from the ceremony at Dover, and statements from Gold Star families. Hold on a second. This is from Axios here. Mark Schmitz, the father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz told Congress in April of 2023 that, quote, while I stood there on the tarmac, no, actually we have the sock cut. Let's watch it.
Well, I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch over and over again. All I wanted to do was shout out, it's 2:30, asshole. But out of respect to the other grieving families, I bit my tongue once again.
God bless him. I'm so sorry for his loss, and you can feel his anger. And Jen Psaki calls him a liar by putting this lie of her own in her book. She's looking those Gold Star families in the face and saying, you lied. You put out misinformation to hurt our dear president. I'm the only one who will tell you the truth. She put it in her book, which she then read in audio form. And this is the same person who a week ago was out there lambasting Kristi Noem for lying in her book. At least she just lied about a dumbass meeting with a world leader. It's a lie that's dumb to tell, but of no consequence. This is a middle finger to the Gold Star families, and there's been no apology. What she's done so far is first, not respond when she was asked for comment by Axios. And then after they published their story, she said, the detail in a few lines of the book about the exact number of times he looked at his watch will be removed in future reprints about the ebook. Then she makes it about Beau Biden, because he's the go-to of the entire White House team whenever controversy hits. She tries to say the story on Afghanistan is really about the importance of delivering feedback, even when it's difficult. Told through my own experience of telling President Biden that his own story of loss was not well received by the families who were grieving their sons and daughters. You see, I got it. I understand he shouldn't have brought up Beau Biden, as then she does right here to excuse her own lie and her offense caused to the poor Gold Star families. It's absolutely egregious. And by the way, no apology, zero apology to the Gold Star families, 6 of whom spoke to the New York Post and have demanded a retraction and an apology from her. Nothing. Look at this. How dare she insult them in an effort to score political points for her heartless boss. What do you guys make of it?
Well, it's disgusting. I haven't read her trash book, obviously, as I imagine many people in your audience haven't either. But I wonder, while she was busily excusing him for checking his watch and disrespecting families to their face, whether she got into the fact that none of those families would have been there in the first place if it wasn't for Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. And the egregious missteps and just all-out callousness as it dealt with our armed forces who'd been, at that point, 20 years into a mission of trying to withdraw at the height of the fighting season so he could make a deadline of a 20th anniversary of 9/11, which is what this is all about. I mean, none of those families would be there in the first place if he didn't want to do a big ceremony on 9/11 announcing that he had ended the war in Afghanistan. Like, never mind the fact that the facts on the ground didn't support what he was trying to do, or he put their lives in danger. He got him killed. Like, just be honest with it. Yeah. They would not have died if not for that decision making. So his watch, whatever, yes, she's a liar, but I made the mistake years ago of assuming that everyone who speaks for the Biden administration had no training at all. I think they had tons of training, because I don't know how you can straight-face lie so often without having some sort of at least remedial course in sociology.
Well, it's a great point. But one way you can straight-face lie so frequently is if you have a receptive audience, and Democrats certainly have that in the mainstream press. We always say that the easiest job in town is Democrat press secretary, because they can say whatever they want, and it will lead the story as if they're the hero, and the Republicans are always quoted at the very bottom. And I think that conditions people like Jen Psaki into like this false sense of reality that, oh, you just lie, you'll get away with it, just lie, nobody's going to notice. Well, he was on camera, and everybody, including that very, very sad story of that guy who, I mean, Megyn, like, that video was heartbreaking. Yeah. I feel so bad for that guy. And people like Jen Psaki just think they can lie to them and then move on to the next thing, the next cocktail party.
And then say it's misinformation. The nerve of this woman to say it's misinformation, to claim otherwise. She knows very well that the Gold Star families are on record as saying it happened. Keep going, Ashbrook.
No, I mean, you said it very well. It is infuriating. And it is very infrequent that they get caught in the lies that they tell on a daily basis. But I think that's why it's so important that people like you, Megyn, and people that are listening to this show are actively, vigilantly watching this president and this White House, because you know that the media is not. And so it's dependent on your audience, Megyn. It's dependent on people like you. It's depending on people like us at the Variety Program to hold them accountable.
You can only
Duncan
really
and
understand
Smug, let me. Yeah, go ahead, Duncan. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the only way you can really understand how somebody can be so successful at being such a bald-faced liar is understanding this revolving door between liberal dark money groups, government, and then media. I mean, Jen Psaki came up in her career in a liberal dark money group and then waltzed her way right into the White House to be a spokesperson for the president of the United States. And then when she got tired of that job, she's on national television every single night. Like, when you live a life like that, that's how you become a liar with no remorse.
That's right.
Yeah. But look at this. We pulled this a couple weeks ago when Ronna McDaniel got booted from the RNC. No, when she got booted from NBC, right, after like a day of service. Jen Psaki goes on her failing show at MSNBC, and maybe the audience remembers this. I compared her at the time to Dora the Explorer. She was like, I'm here for truth. La, la, la. Listen to what she said, how she described that path you just described. Duncan, listen.
Some, mainly in the right-wing ecosystem, have made the comparison to others who have come from government or politics into the media, including me. And that is a comparison I felt like I had to address. I got into public service for the same reason that many people do, to serve the American people. And there are many others who have followed a similar path, who I have a great deal of respect for. But here's the thing. That kind of experience only matters and only has value to viewers, all of you, if it is paired with honesty and with good faith. And our democracy is in danger because of the lies that people like Ronna McDaniel have pushed on this country.
OMG. And not for nothing, because I'm just gonna show you the Dora clip because you weren't here. Here it is.
To dance the kitty cat dance, we need to scratch our kitty paws, stomp our feet, and wag our kitty tails. We got the mermaid free! Yay!
Same person.
That's a perfect comparison. Even the voice sounds the same. Right?
Are we sure Saki didn't do the voiceover for
was that
Dora?
another gig that she had on the way there? I mean,
Do you
to me, the
believe those
misinformation.
I'm here to serve the American people. It only matters if it's paired with honesty and good faith and not lies.
That's the thing, is cloaking all of that bad faith under protecting democracy and saying any facts that are inconvenient to you are misinformation. Her book should have been lying for the Bidens, not lessons from the White House, because she ran the same playbook when Joe was running the first time. They lied about Hunter's laptop. This is their game plan during election season, is they have to try to make everyone, trick them again into believing that, oh, Joe Biden, he's nice Uncle Joe. He's a nice guy. He's not the callous monster who sits and looks at his watch when the soldiers who were killed because of him are being brought back to the country. I mean, that's unbelievable to do that as a president. And to send out a spokesperson, she's still his spokesperson. Now she just gets to do it on MSNBC. To send out your spokesperson and try to lie to the American people again and say that didn't happen, don't trust your lying eyes, it's disgusting.
It is disgusting.
And then when caught, to just say misinformation, that his critics, and now when caught red-handed on those lies, to say, oh, this small detail of exactly what the timing was will be corrected on the. No, that goes to the very heart of the matter. That depending on when the timing was, there's either a huge controversy or there's absolutely nothing. You changing the time of when he looked at that watch changes the story into a nothing, falsely. That's why this Gold Star dad was so pissed off, the timing of it in the SOT we played. That's why the 6 families are speaking in the New York Post immediately, saying this is bullshit, this is whitewashing. She knows very well this isn't some minor edit of like, oh, gee, I said 9:15 when I really meant 9:20. She completely changed the facts. And by the way, guys, as I mentioned, she was on The View, was it last week, ripping Kristi Noem on her book controversy. Watch this, last week.
I've also never worked for somebody who's lied about a foreign leader they've met with. And Alyssa made this point. This is so true. Meeting with Kim Jong-un, there are a handful of people who have ever done this. It's very knowable. I just wrote a book. You read the book 1,000 times. So many. You read it out loud. When you're doing the audiobook, you think, oh, you need a comma there. That weird word is strange. When she said, and I met with Kim Jong-un, did she think to herself, I didn't meet with Kim Jong-un?
Oh my God.
when you read the audiobook, you think about it 1,000 times. Oh. That was my takeaway. You need a comma there.
Did she read the book 1,000 times where it said the president looked at his watch only after the ceremony had ended? This was a huge story. It was a huge story. It got coverage everywhere. She knows damn well that this matters. And either she didn't understand it at the time it actually happened and didn't bother to do any fact checking before she put this lie in her book, understanding that it could anger Gold Star families, or she lied throughout. My money's on the latter. I think she's a liar.
No question.
By the way, no comment yet from MSNBC either, which they should do. They need to also make a comment saying, we regret her error, she's going to make it right, and we're sorry. And then maybe put her on the air. But that's the same network that's employing Joy Reid, who lied to us about the FBI investigating who hacked her blog after mysteriously, when she was the only one ever posting on it, all these homophobic comments appeared on it. But that's a federal crime, lying to the FBI. Did she actually tell that shit to the FBI? Because she should be in jail if that's true.
Well, it's a funny thing. It's not an isolated incident. Obviously, we saw all of the lies that she had as press secretary. Like the one that I remember the most. Do you remember early on in the Biden administration when they had the border security, the border patrol on the horse?
Yes, that was awful.
And there was this left-wing outfit that said that this border patrol agent was whipping people.
Yeah.
And immediately the press office in the Biden administration jumps to it, takes this absolutely hook, line, and sinker, and they eliminate all kinds of things. They demonize the border patrol. They keep with the lie, and then it turns out, you find out a week later, none of that is true. It was literally the reins on a horse, like as anyone who's ever ridden a horse can attest. But they didn't walk any of that back, and the damage was done, and the impressions amongst the Biden base voters only further deteriorated for border security personnel. I mean, it's not just the Gold Star father. It's anyone who gets in their way, and I think you said it best, Ashbrook, remorseless is the key.
Yeah.
Anybody who speaks for a living is going to make an error along the way. The question is whether you feel bad about it and you correct the record after the fact. We've all had to do that in some form or fashion. They don't and own it, and they don't. She doesn't even occur to her that that's a responsibility.
She can't apologize to the Gold Star families because this was intentional and she knows it. There's no way of saying this was an innocent mistake. This was a huge deal. She understands very well, as the press secretary at the time, what she was doing. She knew perfectly well. And she decided to take the hit because she's running cover for him. She wants abortion on demand more than she wants an honest relationship with her listeners, readers, viewers. And that's very obvious. What do you make of the news that we're going to have at least 2 presidential debates, Mark?
You want to know what I think? The cynic in me is that the reason that Trump agreed, and he agreed so readily to CNN, is that this is three-dimensional chess, and he knows he's going to get, or it's most likely he's going to get convicted in most state courts, in New York included. If you get convicted of multiple felonies, most judges will remand you immediately into custody pending sentencing. He's forestalling. He's going to dare this judge. You put me in custody. I've got a presidential debate. You have definitely interfered with the election. And here you go. I want it in June. I think that's exactly what's happening.
That's so interesting. I hadn't even considered that. Wait, could that happen? So if they wrap both cases by Monday or Tuesday, they have closing arguments maybe on Thursday because they're off on Wednesdays. The jury gets the case and we have a verdict potentially within 2 weeks from now. You're telling me the judge, if he's convicted, could immediately sentence him to go to jail?
Ask Marcia if she can name 10 cases where somebody has been convicted of multiple felonies while being cited for contempt during the trial, and name a judge who has not remanded that person pending sentencing. It's almost virtually unheard of.
True.
Marcia?
Very, very true. With all that he's got going on, with all not just this case, but a judge looks at the entire picture of what this guy's got going on. And it's a lot of cases and there's a lot of jeopardy. He's also been cited for contempt a million times. He's shown that he has no regard for the law. And someone like that, if you don't remand them, you're incompetent. So I have to say, no, I've never seen a case where they haven't. However, this would be the one where it doesn't happen because it's Trump. And I think the judge will probably not remand him. He may take his passport and do those kind of interim things you can do to control someone, their movements, and prevent him from leaving town. Maybe even give him an ankle monitor. But I don't think that he's going to get remanded.
We could have a presidential debate with one of the presidential candidates wearing an ankle monitor.
Wait, let me give you one. Let me just add one little kind of twist to this. So you've got a presidential candidate who's being tried in the Supreme Court of New York, who I think the odds are his best day is a hung jury. I don't think there's any chance of an acquittal given the jury. And he potentially faces being remanded into custody. That is a real possibility. If he was anybody but Trump, he would be in custody. And you now have, as of yesterday, Hunter Biden, scheduled not for one, but 2 criminal trials in June as well. So the son of the current president and the leading contender for president, both dealing with criminal jeopardy in the same single month.
I'm dead. I died. I'm done. I can't. Can you just explain, Marsha, I'll give this to you. Explain remand.
That means being taken into custody. So when they say remanded into custody, he is sent back to the custody of the jailer, whoever that is, county, state, whatever it is, federal. So,
Marsha, why don't you describe what happens in the courtroom when they read the guilty verdict? You'll see them take off the watch, take off the pen, take off the belt, put their hands behind their back, get cuffed, and walked in the back door.
Yeah.
In the courtroom?
In the courtroom.
In the courtroom, right into lockup. It happens every single time, absent some extenuating circumstance.
Yeah.
In state court. In
state court. That's right. I can't vouch for what happens in a federal trial, but this is a state trial. So, and I would imagine New York follows what we do, Mark. I mean, it's the same procedure.
They absolutely do. Federal court is more civilized. Generally, if you've been out on bail or on release, they will put the case over for sentencing. They'll order the PSR, the pre-sentence report, and you'll be allowed to stay out of custody pending sentencing. State court, completely different. You are
what about a court like this, where a case like this, where most legal experts I've read do not predict Trump will be sentenced to jail? But even under those, as somebody without a record, even under those circumstances, would the likelihood be, if his name weren't Trump, he'd be remanded?
I don't know what legal experts you're talking to, but this judge has already threatened to put him in jail for saying the unbelievable statement that this jury is 95% Democrat and it's a Democrat coming to get me. That is what he has been found in contempt of. So, and when you're threatening jail over that, you get convicted of 34 felonies, he's going to go to jail.
Oh my God.
Usually,
go ahead,
usually that's absolutely true. By the way, he's also been cited for contempt for calling the judge corrupt, the clerk corrupt, insulting their families. I mean, he's made outrageously disgusting remarks, and any other defendant would have already been sitting in jail for contempt. So, look at how unusual, we call it in the law, sui generis, this is. It's Trump, and therefore none of the rules apply. So, I mean, the fact that he isn't sitting in jail right now is amazing. So I don't predict that he's going to get remanded. It's possible he won't get jail time. Although given all of his behavior and everything that they've seen, if the jury does convict, and I think it probably will, it would be really ridiculous not to give him some jail time. We have to think about what kind of precedent you're setting, because this is, people have talked a lot about the nature of these charges and how unusual they are and how they're trumped up misdemeanors into a felony, et cetera. But it really was an effort to affect the election. There's no question that was the motive. He didn't care otherwise. And I do think the evidence has shown that. So whether you think he deserves jail time or not, it is a felony. And you have to think about what other defendant would get away with no jail time, given all that he's done and given what he's convicted of. It's remarkable, but I don't think he will. I mean, honestly, if I had to put my money on either side, I would guess he will not get jail time.
See, that's my legal expert right there, Mark. She doesn't believe it. I haven't seen. I mean, with Turley, McCarthy, I haven't seen anybody predicting that this is likely to result in a jail time sentence, given his complete absence of any criminal history. And I mean, you're saying this based on the fact that this is a Trump biased judge, which I agree with, which is why I don't think Trump's comments have been disgusting. I know why you're saying that, Marsha, but I think he's running for president and he's got 2 wars to fight. He's got a legal war and he's got a PR war, and all those comments are very important for the PR war, which is working for him. And I understand now the judge has got to run his courtroom, and he's been chastising Trump at every turn. But Mark, on the subject of jail time, is that just based on the fact that you think this is a Trump-hating judge?
No, I think that I think most judges, I'm just telling you based on 40 years of doing this, almost 99% of the time in a case like this, even though it's a documents case, you get convicted of a number of felony counts, you're going to get remanded, period, end of story. And by the way, I might bet Marsha on this. I still think will sentence him to jail. He may not remand him now because clearly under any interpretation that would interfere with the presidential election. But I can see him sentencing him to jail, staying the jail time, citing the fact he does not want to interfere with the election. But I don't think that this judge is going to say, I'm going to give you straight probation. I don't think there's any chance of that, frankly.
You're going to take that bet?
Shall see. I'm taking that bet. I don't think it's going to be a long sentence. I mean, I don't think.
You don't think
even if he does get jailed, it'll be something minimal. Yeah, I think it'll be something minimal, if at all. But I would take the bet that he does not get jail time. That's
wow.
I'm in.
So you're saying no jail time and not remanded, and Mark's saying jail time and remanded.
I'm saying that I don't think he will remand. Most judges do, but if convicted, this judge is going to sentence him to jail and then stay the jail sentence so that he doesn't get accused.
Pending what? Pending what?
Pending appeal.
Okay, pending so appeal. Trump, the filing or the resolution?
Yeah, no. What he will do is set a bail pending appeal, and that will to stay the immediate imposition of jail time. But I will tell you right now, this case, in my humble opinion, is so susceptible to being reversed on appeal. I can't even tell you. I mean, there's never any, most appeals are affirmed for the prosecution or the conviction is affirmed. But this case, frankly, is the most attenuated legal theory that I can even imagine.
Okay,
and
so
that is the jeopardy right there.
But do you think we talked about maybe Trump is agreeing to this immediately because he sees the debate as a disincentive to the judge to remand him or do anything too aggressive? Because now it's like we could be days away from, I guess it'll be a couple weeks away from the debate.
Unless they're going to allow him to debate from Rikers by video.
Oh my God!
I think frankly, like I say, it's three-dimensional chess. He knows, agree immediately. This case is going to go to the jury in no time. There's no way that this state judge is going to remand him now pending a debate. There could have been a world where he would have remanded him for a small period of time, but I just can't imagine it now with a debate that's in the same month when he gets convicted.
Okay, so how about Biden's calculation then? I mean, is Biden's calculation probably no more than he's going to be fresh off of his first conviction, and I can't wait to discuss it in front of the American people.
That has to play into it, don't you think? There's no more, but it's a good vulnerable point at which to confront Trump. Well, look I'm talking to a convicted felon now. This is who I'm debating. He can call him a 6-year-old and everything else, but when you can call him an actual convicted felon, that's a pretty nice position to be in. So I would guess that has a great deal to do with it.
Yes, because Mark, it came out of the blue. I mean, I think most people did not expect Biden to agree to these debates. For the record, he's rejecting the Commission on Presidential Debates and their proposal, which we see in every election, to hold 3 presidential debates beginning in September. They happen in September, October. And Biden said, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want your traditional structures, and I reject you. I'll do it with 2 news organizations, one in June, one in September. And as I said, he said, pick the moderator from your existing roster. And Trump, too, said, I don't want the Commission on Presidential Debates either. So they're both going outside the traditional colored lines. It's kind of interesting. Trump wants an audience. He had his typical rhetoric, like it's going to be extremely exciting. And I can see Biden doesn't want crowds, although, he must be used to not having them. And Biden said, right, I don't want any crowds. I just want, like, in a news studio, quiet, and I want the opponent's mic turned off as soon as he's done answering. I don't know whether any of those terms have been agreed to, but we have 2 dates. This could wind up being like the Ben Shapiro-Candace Owens debate, which never happened, even though both parties said, yeah, bring it. No, it didn't happen. This could wind up, but I think it's going to happen now that you got the Nets involved. But I do wonder whether this could backfire on Joe Biden, Mark, because as we've seen all along, all the big lawfare efforts against Trump, whether it was the indictments the mugshot, the trial have wound up in the polls either not hurting or helping him.
Well, could it backfire? I'm sure the calculus is, I don't have any inside information, but living in my kind of left-wing Democratic bubble on the that I exist in, everybody seems to think in my world that if Trump is convicted, that the so-called swing voters are going to swing against Trump. I think that's wrong, frankly. I don't think that's the case. I think that so far, to echo your analysis here, every single one of these cases has imploded spectacularly, and every prediction by conventional kind of lawyers or wisdom has been dead wrong. I remember, Megyn, you probably do as well, everybody was saying the Fani Willis recusal motion had no legs. Everybody was saying that the judge in what's her name in the January 6th was going to.
That's Chutkan.
She was going to drive this thing to trial. We were getting to trial. There's no way the Supreme Court would entertain presidential immunity. Every single thing by the chattering class has been wrong when it comes to these cases. And, newsflash, it's because most of these people do not practice in trial courts or in appellate courts and don't have any understanding of what the legal issues are. And it's too bad, because I think it misleads people who are watching or listening to these things as to what the odds are in these cases.
All right, I have kind of a very interesting update on the Judge Chutkan January 6th trial, which I'm going to get to in 1 second. But I just want to stay on New York for 1 minute. Here's a bit of Joe Biden in his announcement. We found out he was willing to debate by a video statement he released on X, and then a follow-up with a written statement, and then Trump immediately said yes. But here's what Biden said in accepting the debate.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Okay, an attempt at humor there, because Trump's on criminal trial and he's off on Wednesdays, which is annoying, I have to say, because Trump's not allowed to talk about, there's so much that Trump is gagged in responding to. And it's just annoying that the sitting president would be bringing it up when he knows Trump has to fight with one hand tied behind his back. Okay, but whatever. Like, he can't get out there and say, yeah, I'm on criminal trial because I'm sitting in front of a jury that's 95% Democratic. And, if you go by the stats. No, he'll get jailed if he says that. Okay, whatever. He puts out the thing, he's looking for a laugh, and enter the crew at Morning Joe to provide it. Watch.
Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
Wow, nothing subtle about that round. Yeah. That was straight down the middle.
Oh, boy. Okay. So just a little preview of how it's going to go when CNN hosts the debate. He wanted to be attorney general. He wanted to be taken along to the administration. Trump was smart enough to realize, no, there's no role for you there. And then this is basically what happened to Michael Cohen. He became very familiar to many of us who have seen this movie many, many times. He jumped out immediately in all of the writings he did about Trump and podcasts he did about Trump and testimony he gave about Trump, becoming absolutely obsessed with the man. I give you Glenn Close.
I just want to be a part of your life.
Oh, this is the way you do it, huh? Showing up at my apartment?
What am I supposed to do? You won't answer my calls. You change your number. I mean, I'm not going to be ignored, Dan.
Yes, that's Michael Cohen today. He makes his living based on Donald Trump. He talks about Donald Trump. Even on the stand, he seemed a little wistful about his earlier time when he mattered to Donald Trump. And now he's just like, everything about this guy is defined by Donald Trump. He did switch his tune. I mean, okay. He has lied so many times, it's hard to keep up. But he's praised Trump repeatedly. I'll just give you a little. Okay, here he is in SOT 3 in a montage.
One thing Donald Trump is, he's a compassionate man. He's a man of great intellect, great intuition, and great abilities. Mr. Trump's memory is fantastic, and I've never come across a situation where Mr. Trump has said something that's not accurate. Mr. Trump truly cares about America. He loves this country. He's an amazing negotiator, maybe the best ever in the history of this world. The words the media should be using to describe Mr. Trump are generous, compassionate, principled, empathetic, kind, humble, honest, and genuine. He's not lying. Wow. He was protecting a friend. There's a difference. What is the difference? The difference is he was being a true friend. It didn't matter to him. He will ultimately, and I've said this so many times, he will ultimately go down in history as the greatest president.
Oh my God. With Chris Cuomo, who, by the way, has got his hands totally dirty in this whole thing too. So that's the government star witness today, Phil. I mean, I realize he changed his tune, but it's so self-serving. A jury will see through this.
I hope a jury will see through it, but we're talking about New York after all, and we've well documented that this jury, Alvin Bragg is counting on this jury to be sort of in the bag for Bragg and against Trump. You know, when you got a lawyer who is surreptitiously recording a client and then basically saying this little snippet of a conversation proves all the other things that I'm saying that are negative about him, which, by the way, weren't recorded, it just defies credibility. There's just no way in the world that a rational jury and a rational legal system would buy off on any of this, Megyn. You've got this individual who's capable of saying all of the things that you just played in that SOT, and then fast forward to today, everything that he says under oath before this jury is going to be diametrically different. Normally, we would say that that person is a compulsive liar and is not the kind of person you want to build a felony prosecution around. They have not proven the elements of this case. There's been no evidence yet in this case that Donald Trump committed a crime. They're going to have to hang their hat entirely on the testimony of this liar. They're going to have to get a jury to say, you know what? All the other times he's lied, we're going to give him a pass. We believe beyond a reasonable doubt he's telling the truth here in court. And it's going to be all done without any corroboration. There's no physical evidence. There's not going to be any documents. You're not going to have Donald Trump writing a letter saying, hey, Michael, I want you to use this money. I want you to pay it for something, and I want to record it on the books in another way. No, this is payment for legal fees or legal matters. And that's how
legal
it was
expenses,
into the books of the company.
Which is even more ambiguous. That's the word they used. And
where's the accountant?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, the CFO is in jail. He's at Rikers. And I don't expect him, there's a real question about whether they're going to drag him in and testify. And if they don't, whether they're going to get an adverse inference drawn by jurist instruction. We'll see. But here's Michael Cohen. I gave you he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. That was like Glenn Close and Michael Douglas in the beginning of the movie. The hot elevator sex, the days and days behind closed doors while the wife was away. It was actually only one night. That was the beginning. Then Trump started to ignore the calls. And much as it had the same effect on Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, here's what it did to Michael Cohen. All right, I'll show you. Let's start with SOT 5.
Michael Cohen here with another Michael Cohen Reacts. Well, I've been receiving countless phone calls by people, all concerned because they're hearing on the media that Donald Trump is going to run again. And he's going to make this fucked up bullshit announcement sometime after the midterm elections. All right? I still to this day maintain that he is not doing it. It is still part of this great grift of Donald Trump. Now, for me personally, I hope to God that this fucking scumbag runs. I really do. And you ask me why. Well, first of all, because 24 hours after that, I'm going to put together my own team. I want to run as a Democrat. I want to put myself up on a stage against this fat fuck, this orange-crusted Mandarin Oompa Loompa. So let's see if I'm right. Stay tuned. I'll be back.
Then he took his bunny off the stove. Viva. This is their star witness.
No, but well, I mean, I don't use the word grifter very often. I'm not going to use it now. But that very much seems like someone who's going to say one thing when it's profitable one way and say something that's the exact opposite when it's profitable the other way. And the other thing is when he's out there, praising Trump, first of all, I happen to agree with him back then. But he's not just praising Trump because he is, like a narcissist, indirectly praising himself. This is how smart Trump is, how good he is, and all this stuff. And I'm his right-hand man. I'm his fixer, so it must be a reflection on my own greatness as well. But, the idea that this guy is a convicted perjurer, He is a confirmed liar. He's a scoundrel of the highest order. I am now retrospectively reanalyzing Judge Engoron's decision in the E. Jean Carroll case, where he addresses Michael Cohen. And he specifically says, it's very funny why he said it, this man is a convicted perjurer. He's a liar.
Engoron was the fraud case, the $400 million fraud.
Engoron was, yes, the $455 million.
And Cohen testified in that case. Keep going.
Yes, not the E. Jean Carroll. Sorry, just to clarify that there. Engoron said, as a matter of his decision, Michael Cohen is a convicted perjurer, and while some triers of fact might not give much weight to the words of a liar, I believe him here. I'm paraphrasing, but it's almost verbatim.
It's almost perfect.
Now that I'm listening to that and rethinking it, it's like Engoron was phrasing what the jury has to spew out in terms of coming to a conviction here. Yeah, he's a convicted perjurer. Some jurors might think he's a liar now, but we choose to believe him now because once a perjurer, not always a perjurer. But no, I think Engoron actually telegraphed and laid up the script that the jury is going to gobble up to come to their foregone conclusion.
Everyone around him, Phil, is a liar. Michael Cohen is a liar. He had a lawyer and continues to have a lawyer. He's still represented by this guy, David Schwartz, who you may recall Michael Cohen got in trouble a couple months ago when he was trying to get out of jail not long ago, late 23, and he cited a bunch of case law to the judge. It was all made up. It was fake cases that he used some AI generator to come up with. And his lawyer was this guy, David Schwartz. And I've got to show you this. So David Schwartz came on my show at NBC shortly after this whole story broke about the $130,000 payment and so on and so forth. And now we know that Trump reimbursed Cohen for the $130. We know that. And it's almost better if Trump just would have done it himself, because you can make unlimited donations to your own campaign, but you can't have a third party do it, which is how they're trying to get him. But anyway, there's no question that Trump reimbursed Cohen for the $130. But the first defense that Cohen came out with was, I was not reimbursed. And I just did this out of my love, again, back to the Glenn Close in the elevator, for Donald Trump. And Schwartz came on my show and tried to spew this nonsense. Look at this.
He got approached. It'll take $130,000 to make this go away.
Got it.
He had to make a decision, okay?
I get it. I'm not even challenging on that. I'm challenging on the impossibility that he paid $130 grand for something he didn't do and never sought reimbursement from his client.
I get it when you're looking at it in a vacuum, but if you understand the relationship here, it makes complete sense that he's approached. Am I going to go to the boss or am I not going to go to the boss? All right, what do? He chose not to go to the boss.
Why?
He chose to take care of this thing.
Why wouldn't he get $130? Why would he pay $130 grand of his own money?
Well, you know what? When Michael Cohen does come out, you're gonna find out the mechanics of that.
No, you're not answering. You're dodging. You're getting out of bounds.
I am answering.
What's the truth?
The truth is he loves the boss, and
he did it out of love.
He did it. He did it. He did it out of love, and he did it out of loyalty.
All right. So they laughed openly at him. We know that he was reimbursed. Of course he was reimbursed. And that's his lawyer. The lawyer is a liar. Cohen is a liar. The jury's not stupid. I know they hate Trump, but they're not stupid. And I just gave you one soundbite. Here's a little bit more of Michael Cohen on the record since the breakup, talking about Trump. Stop 4.
Yeah, I think he's hit the panic button a while ago. However, what he's very good at is hiding it. In front of the camera, he's calm, cool, and collect because he's a sociopath.
I looked at him and I said to myself, boy, what a sad-looking, pathetic, deflated individual. He is playing to the lowest denominator of American that exists in this country. He is truly the most dangerous person right now in this country and possibly the world. Trump 2024, more like Trump 20 to 24 years.
Okay. So the thing is,
oh my gosh, a lot to unpack.
The prosecution's trying to front a lot of this in direct. So to take the sting out of what's going to be an absolutely brutal cross. But there's no way they can take all the sting. They'd spend every day, all day for the next 2 weeks beating him up if they really wanted to get after everything the defense is going to do to him. And I just can't believe that once the defense is done, the jury's going to be having any feeling other than, I want to vomit. Get him out of here.
But Megyn, you say that the jury's not dumb. The problem is they're partisan in all likelihood. And it's a big distinction. They're not going to do what they're going to do out of stupidity. They're going to do it out of partisan prejudice. And that's what I think is a foregone conclusion. But everyone should rewatch that Michael Cohen and just appreciate confession through projection. Everything that Cohen just said about Trump is true of himself. But Megyn, one thing about Phil, sorry I cut you off. You mentioned it a moment ago, and it's something that people should really understand. By reimbursing Cohen, the allegation is that it was a disguised campaign contribution because, Cohen made it and then he got repaid for it. The bottom line is, even if that's the case, and that's the theory of the case, it should be Cohen who should be the defendant in this and not Trump, because like you astutely observed, you can't, over donate to your own campaign. And so if it was Trump donating to his own campaign in kind or whatever, it's not a crime. If it's Cohen who did it because he got reimbursed and it exceeded his campaign contribution, Cohen should be the one on the defense.
Well, here's the other thing, Phil. I heard Andy McCarthy raising this point, and as usual with Andy, it was a good one. Who was defrauded? Who was the victim of this alleged fraud? Because Michael Cohen paid the money. Michael Cohen and everybody around him, the testimony is consistent. He got paid back, and Trump paid him double what he paid out so that he could pay full taxes, 50%. on all the monies. So New York State did not get defrauded. The only thing that was defrauded was a book, allegedly, in which they didn't write down reimbursement for hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. They wrote legal expenses paid to Michael Cohen pursuant to a retainer agreement. And the testimony was there was no written retainer agreement. But meanwhile, all these lawyers are coming forward to saying, I never have one written down. I've had so many cases in which I don't have a written down retainer agreement, even if you're supposed to. Anyway, so who was defrauded? The book. The book was given bad information that was kept internally at Trump Organization. The book wasn't even filed as an addendum to a tax return or to some sort of corporate submission that was required. It went on the shelf and it sat there until Alvin Bragg subpoenaed it. So who was defrauded? Because fraud in the ether is not actionable. And the law is really clear on that. They won't enforce fraud claims unless there's an identifiable victim, which is one of the reasons why the whole fraud claim under Engoron was so outrageous. But there, at least we had a specific statute saying it was okay.
Yeah, well, Engoron, of course, doesn't require any victims before he labels something fraud. Neither does Letitia James, and apparently neither does Alvin Bragg. In the TikTok video with Michael Cohen, when he says that he might run in 20 because he wants to be sort of on stage, well, that's what's happening right now. He's got his way. He is on stage. This whole thing is a theatrical stage production. It's not a court of law. This is nothing that's based on reality in terms of law, because for the reasons you pointed out, there's no victims, no fraud. It's the only time in history that I know of where two misdemeanors, arguably with the statute of limitations having passed, are combined together to make a felony or 36 felony fraud counts where nobody was defrauded. It's absolutely ridiculous to call this thing a court of law. This is simply a theatrical production, and Michael Cohen has gotten his way. He is now on center stage with Donald Trump, and his TikTok followers are just going insane, and his own star in his own mind is on the rise. But let there be no doubt, Megyn, that this jury is going to make their decision based on their feelings about Donald Trump, not about what's going on in this courtroom. I can only hope that there's one or two, maybe even three, that will say, look, you know what, even though we don't like Donald Trump, we don't see a crime here.
In my job, I think that people trust me because they know I give them facts and I've researched what I say. I don't just come out here and read what I saw on X. And over the years, people build up a trust of with you. Like, okay, she hasn't misled me. I can take it to the bank. And they know that to deliver these complex things in a way that's digestible does take a lot of work. I would say that's the difference between myself and many in the news industry. Like, I will spend hours figuring it out so my audience doesn't have to.
I watch everybody and everything. It's what I do for a living. I'm completely aware that you didn't stumble into this audience. This is real work.
Mm-hmm. And everyone can do it. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is that's your particular focus. You do have to have some gusto.
Everybody can do it if they're self-aware. They have to find things that are like, I'll give you an example. I was an atrocious student because I wasn't passionate about Saturn. I didn't want to learn that. I just didn't, you know? And so I think what hurts people is they're also not willing to be humble enough to say, I'm not good at this and I don't like that. You know, and I think, right? You like that. I'm glad that you picked up on that.
Totally.
There's something really powerful to that. I'm going to say it again. You have to have the humility to say, I'm not good at this and I don't like that. And what happens is if you have that sentence with yourself, then you end up going to the place of, I am good at this and I do like that. And so I'll give you an example.
Don't you think, Gary, this is another reason why false praise from one's parents is counterproductive?
It's devastating.
The parent doesn't have to be putting the child down all the time, but should not be falsely praising things that the kid is actually not good at.
I don't know if you can see this. Do you see the goosebumps I have right now?
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I do.
Do you know why? Do you know why I have this?
I know you love your mama.
Well, I love my mama the most, but let me say it from where you're going. I believe that 8th place trophies over the last 30 years have done more mental health damage. Do you understand that these kids, and I'm very fortunate, we hire so many kids right out of school. I have hundreds, 700-800 employees, maybe even 1,000 now that are 22 to 25. And I can tell you unequivocally, and so much of my audience is this age, I read all my DMs. I, like you, do the research, I read. When I tell you, the amount of kids today that are scared to lose because we taught them that losing was bad. It's so bad that we'll give you a trophy even though your team lost 14-1 in this game. And you'll appreciate this. I think this will make sense to you. All of this was well intended. It wasn't like all these parents came out 30 years ago and said, let's create soft kids that are zoo animals that can't live in the wild and are going to have really tough lives because they don't have a backbone or they can't deal with adversity or they don't have the stomach for, pressure. They just thought they were doing the right thing. The problem was it wasn't. To your point, you can do anything is true for about a nanosecond until you start trying. I can tell you right now that I see unlimited 6, 7, 8-year-old kids on sports fields all around New York City that immediately I can tell you that child is not capable of playing in the National Basketball Association. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Like when I walk through a classroom and see the art hanging that the kids made in 6th grade, I can save a lot of time right now. It is not true that any one of those kids can make art that will sell at Sotheby's in the future. That's great. You can try everything, but you can't be everything.
Yeah.
And when you fall in love with who you are versus who you wish you were, then it becomes game over. I, in 5th grade, wanted to play for the New York Jets. I, by 6th grade, realized I was more likely to buy the New York Jets than to play for them. That made me go into entrepreneurship, not professional sports. And by the way, I love this story,
by the way. I want to hear the story after you finish your point, but I want to hear the story about your mom and your sweater.
I thank you for that. I'm always happy to share the greatest human being of all time, my mom's story. To finish my story, this is very important, I think, for a lot of people. This is a big one, actually. I'm 48 years old. When I was getting D's and F's in school in the late 80s and early 90s, as you know, Megyn, and a lot of people listening right now, entrepreneurship wasn't cool. It wasn't a thing. Everything was about what's the best university you can get into, and then what's the best job you can get into. That was the status. That was the
Very
cool.
True.
That was the right. There was no, when I heard entrepreneur in my youth, that meant that you were like a loser and you made pretend that you worked.
Yeah, and when you heard about somebody dropping out of college to go pursue under, you're like, oh my God, loser. And so but I was willing to lean into who I was because that's where my happiness was. And then I got fortunate that the timing of the world went in my favor. And now I walk around the world and people want to take a picture with me. This is nothing I even thought in a million years. All I wanted to do was sell wine for my dad's wine store. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just wanted to be a businessman. I didn't call it entrepreneur. I'm going to be a businessman when I grow up. That's just what I want for everybody. Don't worry what we think. Don't worry what I think or Megyn thinks or your friends think or your family thinks or the neighbors, and definitely not anonymous people on social media. Think about what you think. Think about what you think, because you're going to be 90 years old one day laying there
And if you have regret, I promise you that's going to taste a lot worse than people making fun of you because you want to open up a bike shop or you're quitting your corporate job to do landscaping. This judgment of others is destroying our happiness, and it must stop, as if anybody else's judgment has anything to actually do with your life.
It's so true. Oh, I love what you said, and I love it. I've heard you say that you don't believe in regrets, and I think my audience knows the same. I don't really have many. I don't spend my time thinking about that kind of thing. I think it's a real mental block toward going forward and advancing your life, your well-being, your happiness. But anyway, one of the reasons you're like this and wound up a happy, seemingly well-adjusted man is Mom. And that brings me to the Jets and your childhood experience. Can you just tell us that? I love this story.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna try to compose it here. Like, this is such a big deal. Like, it's, when I tell you that without a shadow of a doubt, it is uncomfortably clear to me that 89.6% of why I have happiness and contentness, and by the way, back to my professional success, I'm detached from my professional success, meaning I love my career. I love being good at it. I'm humbled by the admiration and opportunities of doing things like this it leads me to, but I don't think it defines who I am. Like, I don't think like I'm good or a good guy or a winner because I'm good at business. I think it's a skill I have that is now kind of revered a little bit more than it has. It's always been respected, but now it's cool, right? It's pop culture. And all of that is because of my mom. My mom was, back to what I just heard you say, I think you would love her parenting style. She was rainbow and sunshine. Like, I had nothing but joy around my household, except when I did things that were not right, which led to real accountability. I was grounded and punished 4 times a year like clockwork because I brought back a report card that looked like garbage, and that was unacceptable. And other than that, I was a pretty good kid, but if I ever did anything, like I would, first of all, let me go to a place that I think may resonate with you. I never even contemplated disrespecting my mom or dad.
Oh gosh. My mom, I mean, I did it because I was a bratty teenage girl, but man, oh man, my mom, Linda made me pay.
Yeah, and by the way, Tamara made my sister Liz pay for the same teenage girl thing. I never went through that phase, but on Real Talk, it was because I was worried. She was an old school, like, we don't play that around here. Like we are in an era now, look, I can wrap my head around why we stopped spanking our kids. Though, if I'm being unbelievably transparent, like I could get a couple glasses of wine in me and I can get into like a thoughtful of like, is there an angle there? But the fact that we don't even ground our kids anymore in modern parenting, are you kidding me? Yeah. All we're teaching people is that there's no consequences in life. Do you know why everyone's so interesting on Twitter? Because you can't punch them in the face when they say something to you. I grew up in Jersey in very blue collar, lower middle class neighborhoods. Let me tell you what happened when we would say something fresh to each other. Somebody might get punched in the face. Right? And so we live in a society now where there aren't ramifications, there aren't consequences. And I couldn't agree more with people understanding, like, actually, Megyn, you'll like this. Do you know why the book cover is purple? Because we become, and boy, oh boy, nobody understands this better than you in this audience. America's become unbelievably red and blue. Like, woo, we are really loving red and blue. When it comes to parenting, if you can be purple, then you win. To your point, and you said it earlier, I'm not talking about scolding your children. I'm not talking about what a lot of parents did to their children. Listen, I'm gonna be vulnerable here. My grandmother, what she did to my father, and she was a Russian woman in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, 70s. This is no judgment. They grew up in people don't understand the USSR, Megyn. The USSR was like North Korea. You weren't allowed to leave. It was jail. It was I promise for everyone that's listening here, which means you listen to a lot of politics and world news and care about this stuff, you have no clue what the USSR was from 1917 to 1991. It was bad. So I don't judge my grandma, but I'm very aware of what a human looks like when they don't get positive reinforcement, when they get negative, when they get that all the time. My father is one of those people. And it's a real challenge to have true self-esteem when you're parented in that negative of an environment. So I'm not saying to everybody to do that, but to parent in a delusional way where everything is great and you're the best and go fight your kids' fights. Megyn, do you know that parents go to school and try to argue with parents to give their kid a better grade? Do you know how crazy that is?
I know. It's absolutely nuts. And beyond, in corporate America too. I've told a story before, but we had a friend at a huge investment bank in New York City. We had dinner with he and his wife, and he was telling us that he actually received a phone call from a new hire at this major American bank from a new hire's mom complaining about her son's tough schedule. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, to me, look, you know what's amazing? You know what's amazing about being born in the Soviet Union and living in America? You realize that people have options. My parents were granted jobs that they couldn't transfer from in their early 20s before we moved to America. When people come to my company and we have listen, I believe in a happy culture in a way that you can't imagine, but not delusion, not entitlement. And when people are like, yo, this blows, this stinks, this sucks, I always, honestly, I take it pretty serious. I'm not ivory tower. I try to attack it. I try to have meaningful conversation. We go try to address it. But when somebody comes a second, third, fourth, fifth time and complains about things that don't matter, like it's one of the most joyous things that in my career that I'm able to say is like, hey, unlike me, who was born in a communist country, and luckily I got out, and definitely unlike my parents and grandparents, you have options. You don't like this company? You know what I would have said to that mom? I said, Mom, first, and this is that, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I would have said. Not for this show, but real life. I would have said, first, Mom, I think it's very sweet that you're calling for your son in one part of me. The other part of me thinks that your son's in big trouble because if you're fighting his fights and he's a grown-ass man, he's got a big problem. And here's the answer to your question. Yeah, and here's the answer to your question. He's more than welcome to do this schedule. We hired him for a reason. We think he's got talent. But if this schedule is too tough for him, he really needs to consider doing something else.
Yeah. That's what I always say. I always say on my team, you don't want to work weekends occasionally. You don't want to work a late night when news breaks. Go work at KeyBank. It's wonderful. You know exactly what the hours are. Go show up at 9, leave at 4. You're good.
And I want everyone to hear this because this is an important nuance. And I don't judge them. You don't want to? Good. Know yourself.
No problem.
You want
news may not be for you.
Mazel tov. You wanna go chill. Do you? I chose to completely punt school. Everyone told me that I should get A's and B's. I told myself I should get D's and F's, and it was joyous. It was joyous until I got grounded every marking period. But
it's joyous.
But it was more than fun for me. Same now in real life. I may want to be hungry and build meaningful, everlasting empires that have positive impact and selfish and selfless goals. But if you are structured a different way and you value something else, and to your point, the occasional discomfort of needing to do something that's out of the normal structure, then that's amazing. You shouldn't work in an entrepreneurial, in my world or your world, fast-paced reality. You shouldn't be a fireman if you're not willing to wake up when the fire happens, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's very okay. This is important. I do not judge people that do not have my ambition or work ethic or interests. I just want them to be themselves. But what I don't want, and this is where I think you're going, and the theme of this, and this will land with everyone, I don't want people to think they can get compensated when they're not that person.
That's right.
If you don't want to be let me make this simple for everyone to understand. If you don't want the pressure of being the quarterback and you want to be the backup linebacker, well, then you better not expect to get quarterback money.
That's exactly right.
If you're can we have the conversation, everyone? You're allowed to do whatever you want, but when you start sneaking into entitlement that you should, there is no should. Hey, everybody, everyone who's listening, you want to get way happier? You want things to go way better? Let me give you something. Eliminate the word should from your vocabulary. There is no should. Mm-hmm. It's too nuanced. What do you mean should? This is why I get so crazy, Megyn, about everyone judging everybody else. You have no idea what's going on in their house. You don't know their background. You don't know what's going on today. I said something the other day, a kid comes in yelling about their manager who's been good to them for 3 years. I hadn't had the information yet to know what was going on, but I said to the kid, I said, but you've loved her for 3 years. What if you're struggling with her for the last 3 weeks because 3 weeks ago she found out that her mom is terminally ill and she hasn't told anybody yet? Maybe that's why she's not showing up to the meeting and over coddling every moment. Maybe, you know what I mean? I don't think, people love throwing around empathy until it's not working for them.
So you take in a bunch of healthy people, you subject them to a bunch of questioning, you set the table for the experiment, they take the capsules, and what did you find?
Well, let's see. So psilocybin, as we certainly expected, produced the whole array of psychedelic-like effects. So there's visual phenomena, visual distortions, visual imagery comes up. There may be greater emotionality, and that can be very positive, sometimes transcendent-like experiences, but also experiences of fear or unstabilizing kinds of experiences, and then there can be somatic effects. The sense of body has changed, and there can also be cognitive changes, and so people can think and imagine different things, and including some paranoid thinking that's very low, but that can occur. So all those kinds of effects occurred. And then at the end of the day, we gave people a whole set of questionnaires. And one set of questionnaires had been developed originally to measure mystical experiences brought about naturally. These are religious type of mystical experiences. And we've since refined that questionnaire, and we call it the Mystical Experience Questionnaire. But what was really interesting is that people endorsed very highly the components of mystical experience that had been described by religious people throughout the ages in terms of discussing these. And we could talk about the qualities of those, but the key quality is this a sense of connectedness to everything, and that can be experienced as a connection with the divine in religious terminology. It doesn't have to be, but so there's a sense of the interconnectedness of all things, that we're all in this together. There's a sense that experience is precious. It's to put in religious language, it's sacred or deserving of reverence. And then another feature is that the experience feels authentically true. And people have these experiences and say it feels more real than everyday waking reality. So those are the features. They came out, but by the end of the day, those become memories, right? Now, here's what was astonishing to me. I at this point in my career, I had assessed a lot of people at high doses of all kinds of different psychoactive drugs. And so I know how to measure subjective effects. I know what to expect from them. And here's what was interesting. People would come back 2 months later, because the way the study was designed, there were 2 or 3 sessions. So they're coming back 2 months later, preparing for a second session. And I sit down and I ask them, well, what do you remember about that, your first session? And the people who got psilocybin, I was blinded to who received what, but the people who got psilocybin would say, oh, I remember that like it was yesterday. That's one of the most important experiences of my life. And so here I'm a skeptic. I've now heard stories about psychedelics, but I wasn't prepared for that. So what does it mean? This was one of the most important experiences of your life. And so my immediate judgmental reaction was, what kind of life has this person had? But no, they would say, well, it's on par with the death of my parent just recently. My father passed, or the birth of my firstborn child. And you go, what? This was a 6-hour session in a faux living room like environment at Johns Hopkins, and it's among the most meaningful experiences of your life. And indeed, that's kind of the core finding, that there's something about these experiences that are remarkable in terms of how they're imprinted and remembered, and then the attributions that people make to those experiences. So I'd never seen anything like that. It hadn't occurred to me when we started the study even to assess for something like that. And then we started developing scales. How important is this experience on a lifetime of experiences, from, like an everyday experience goes up to, within the 10 most meaningful experiences of my life, 5 or the single most. Well, yeah, in that study, and then there was something about spirituality. In that study, 30% of the people said that the experience was the single most spiritually significant experience of their entire life. And about 80% of people in those studies say it's in the top 5 most meaningful and spiritual significant of their lives. And that's that.
Can I just ask you, back up a little bit? Because when you're describing what they're experiencing, now I want to know, how did it get so significant? I'm picturing what you see when you look through a kaleidoscope. I'm picturing, 1970s TV animations, Picasso's. This is what's coming to mind as the images that would be flashing through your head with the eye mask on. Not it? What's actually being seen?
Well, one of the features, Megyn, of these experiences that defines them is that they're ineffable. The first thing that people say is that I can't even describe it. And so what you just described were experiences all in the visual realm, but this goes beyond that. There may be people who have no visions at all, but yet these experiences take on that sense of meaning. So I don't think we understand well enough, and certainly our neuroscience isn't refined well enough to know precisely what components of these experiences result in this incredible meaning making. But in terms of visualization, I mean, that can show up in innumerable different ways, and it can show up just as a carnival-like, atmosphere, but it can also turn to sacred, sacred imagery, or a sense of approaching something that is just beyond description. And so for religiously inclined, they might use the word God, an encounter with God.
You don't have to steer them. So if, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but if you're going to use this to help somebody with stopping smoking or addressing their anorexia, do you have to steer them? Like, we're going to conquer the smoking, picture the cigarette, or even in this study, well, forget that. Let me start again. If you're dealing with depression, do you need to sort of say, we're going to focus on your depression, so that you're kind of pushing them toward resolving the thing you're targeting?
Yeah, great. Great questions. Let's see. So in therapeutic studies, there's a built-in intention for the session, and that is good. It's going to be helpful for them in terms of managing whatever therapeutic condition they have. Now there's also research underway for approval of MDMA or ecstasy for treatment of PTSD. And it's not a classic psychedelic. It's kind of like psychedelics, though. But there, the therapy session very explicitly focuses on, or the expectation is that people are going to talk about their traumatic experience. With a drug like psilocybin, we don't invite people to talk at all. I mean, if some people are moved to talk, we'll listen. But very often, as soon as you start putting something in the ineffable range into words, it pulls you out of the experience.
Yeah.
So our counsel to people is to just stay with the experience. Just trust the process, be interested and curious about it.
Think about that. So if somebody goes in, and we'll talk about the anxiety, depression, but somebody goes in to do this to see if it'll help with depression, and then you don't have to direct them. The mind knows what to do. It like trust in your mind and your soul and the psilocybin working their magic without any specific push or direction. That to me is so remarkable. What's your gift going to be this Valentine's Day? How about taking 10 or 15 years off your appearance with Genucel Skincare and their most popular package? And right now, every most popular package, all their best stuff, is 70% off, 70, and includes the next breakthrough in skincare technology, Genucel's Probiotic Moisturizer, absolutely free. These super ingredients found in yogurt can have the same nourishing benefits and goodness for your skin, right? You eat the yogurt, you get the probiotic, but you can do this on your skin too with probiotic extracts that can target bad bacteria on the surface of your skin to restore balance to your skin's microbiome for a noticeably clearer complexion and visibly younger appearance. See those fine lines, wrinkles, dark spots, sagging jawline, even bags and puffiness visibly disappear right before your eyes thanks to Genucel. Plus, with its immediate effects product, see results in under 12 hours guaranteed or your money back. Go to Genucel.com/MK60 right now. And for the first time ever, every order at Genucel.com from now through Valentine's Day will include a beauty box with two luxury gifts for free. Order now, 2 weeks only. Genucel.com/MK60, GENUCEL.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.